this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Hey everyone, it's Emily Simpson and Shane Simpson from the Legally Brunette podcast.
Each week, we're bringing you true crime through a legal lens.
Whether you want all the facts on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, or you still need to wrap your head around the Diddy verdict, we're breaking it all down step by step.
And we're not just lawyers, we're also husband and wife. It makes for some pretty entertaining episodes.
Listen to Legally Brunette on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know Roald Dahl. He thought up Willy Wonka and the BFG. But did you know he was a spy? In the new podcast, The Secret World of Roald Dahl, I'll tell you that story and much, much more.
What?
You probably won't believe it either.
Was this before he wrote his stories? It must have been.
Okay, I don't think that's true.
I'm telling you, the guy was a spy.
Listen to The Secret World of Roald Dahl on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
14 years in prison for killing a young woman. A 15-year sentence for a crash that caused 3 deaths. 12 and a half years for killing a child and critically injuring her mother. All true stories, all caused by marijuana-impaired drivers. No matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So, if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Danielle Robay, host of Bookmarked, the podcast by Reese's Book Club. And this week on Bookmarked, we're basically hosting the ultimate girls' night. Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Garner, Judy Greer, Rita Wilson, and Gary Rice, and author Laura Dave. These are the women behind season 2 of the Apple TV series, The Last Thing He Told Me. We're talking about turning a book into a hit show and what it really takes to bring a story to life.
The most important metric for me is, do I want to share this book with somebody? That's what creates community, and that's the main thesis of our book club and why we started it, was just to connect people together.
Listen to the Bookmarked by Reese's Book Club podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everybody, Robert Evans here, and I wanted to let you know this is a compilation episode. So every episode of the week that just happened is here in one convenient and with somewhat less ads package for you to listen to in a long stretch if you want. If you've been listening to the episodes every day this week, there's going to be nothing new here for you, but you can make your own decisions.
Hello, and welcome to It Could Happen Here, a podcast about how the world is falling apart and sometimes about how people are putting it back together. What it is today, it's me, I'm James, if you haven't worked that out yet, and I'm joined by Shireen. Say hi, Shireen.
Hi, this is Shireen.
Thank you. And I'm joined today by Vicente Calderon. He's a freelance journalist and the proprietor publisher of TijuanaPress.com. And he's covered the situation on the ground in Tijuana for a very long time, done excellent work. Vicente, what should people know about you? Nice to have you here.
Thank you for the invitation. And in advance, I have to apologize for my English, because this is a mixture of Sesame Street and the Tijuana streets. So,
it's excellent.
So take a picture in the burro kind of English, as we joke here. I'm originally I'm a psychologist. I graduated from the School of Psychology here, but I only worked for a couple of years, and then I got stuck with journalism, and I have been here for more than 30 years by now. I've been doing journalism from radio, and then I moved to television, and then I went to the U.S. to work with Spanish language media twice in LA. And then I came back, and now I'm doing online or digital medium journalism, so to speak. So I'm a native here, and again, I was just supposed to be working this for a while till I got old enough to look like a psychologist, but it just got caught on the addiction for journalism.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. That's fascinating. All right. So the reason we're talking to you today is that we have seen a dramatic increase in violence in Tijuana since Friday, right? We're recording this on Tuesday, the 16th of August. So if people are listening to it later, they'll know. But can you explain a little bit of what happened over the weekend? in Tijuana and then across Mexico as well?
Well, the thing began on Friday here in Mexicali and Tijuana. Mexicali is the capital of the state of Baja California, which is in the northwestern side end of the U.S.-Mexico border. So we began seeing people burning cars on the road. They were just ordering people from public transportation to get off the vehicle, not in a very, so to speak, threatening manner kind of way, because they say, well, the problem is not with you, but you have to get off because otherwise, because we're going to burn this bus. And nobody was really hurt intentionally. We have, just in Tijuana, we have about 15 cases like that. It was mainly public transportation vehicles, or some cases trucks, cargo trucks, or private vehicles. But most of it were public transportation vehicles. But people were working and were moving people from their homes to their works, or to run one errand to another side. So we began to see that this was in a very limited space of time happening, not only in Tijuana and in Mexicali, but also in 5 out of 7 cities of Baja California. Nobody was claiming responsibility, but it looks like it was a coordinated effort in basically the main cities of the state. We were very surprised because even though we have been dealing with drug violence for many decades by now, we never seen something who looks like the narco bloqueos, or blockades of the streets with drug traffickers, which are unfortunately very common in other cities like Monterrey, for example, recently in Jalisco, on the Pacific coast, very in the central part of Mexico, but not here in Tijuana. I mean, I know it sounds rare or strange for many people who knows Tijuana for his bad reputation, but no, we never had cases like this before. That's why it was so surprising. At the end, that was on Friday, and then immediately the local authorities began to display not only police from different agencies, but also soldiers who were coincidentally, so to speak, were here in big numbers and large numbers, because there's a really big push to put out more soldiers to help with public safety in Mexico. Not everybody's pleased with that, because they say that Mexico is becoming a militarized country, and it shouldn't be, because we are trying to be a democracy, and in a democracy is not the military or the army in charge of so much responsibility. But that's something that has been changing, specifically with this new federal administration with the President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. So they sent out all of the soldiers and police officers, and things basically diminished. But by that time, in about less than 2 hours, people was already really scared. Obviously, the news spread in social media, and people began worrying. Also, they began seeing that the public transportation was not enough, because many were just came to a halt. I mean, and not just the public transportation, the official of the city, but all the digital platforms like Uber, Didi, or other services were just worried that, am I be the next one? So if I stay on the roads, am I going to be the target of these guys? We were not sure what was going on. I guess every Tijuana has like an idea that this was coming or linked to drug trafficking, but we were not sure at that time. So in a couple of hours, we didn't see more of these cases, but at that time, the city was really disrupted. So they began closing. I mean, the first thing affected was public transportation. So people was stranded with no ways to go back home. And some schools were canceling classes, and since the students were not able to find transportation, some offered places to stay or spend the night on the schools. Also, that happened with other companies, with the maquiladora plants, the manufacturing plants that are very popular. There's thousands of people here in Tijuana who work there, also in Mexicali. But here also, they, in some cases, have to open spaces so they can spend the night there. And we went out, and was a lot of people stranded with no place, with no way to move from where they were when this began.
Yeah, I saw even like Calimax, the supermarket was closed, right? Like
they did close early, and they announced that the next day they will hold their operation, that they will not open, so they will not put in jeopardy to the safety of their workers. I mean, and they at that during Friday, we didn't know what was going on, how severe was this happening. And just keep in mind that on Friday was the end of a week of very violent scenes in different cities. It began in Guadalajara where the army was trying to capture a couple of drug lords or chief of cells from the Jalisco Nueva Generación Cartel, or the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, which is the quote-unquote newest and strongest and most rapidly expanding drug organization in Mexico. And the problem is there, the dynamic was very, very different. Again, in Tijuana, even after the weekend, nobody was killed. Just one person in Mexicali got injured due to burns while they were burning his truck, but apparently nothing major. So in the case of Guadalajara, it was completely different. They were at gunpoint pulling people, families out of their private vehicles and also buses. And there they were really actually blockading roads in an effort to disrupt the operation from the soldiers trying to capture their bosses. And so the violence were way more strong, so to speak, there. And after that, it moved to Guanajuato, another state where there's high presence of Cartel Jalisco New Generation. And 2 days later, we saw the worst case in Ciudad Juárez, across from El Paso, Texas. Ciudad Juárez is also another border town, or border city, should say, that has been dealing with a lot of drug trafficking for decades. And the things was terribly worse there. I mean, they were there killing civilians randomly. They got to convenience stores, like think about your 7-Eleven. The counterpart is called also, it's a very big chain. In one of these cases, they just went in, opened fire to the cashier, and they killed him. In other cases, a pregnant woman got killed, and another one, since they burned these places, there's two persons who died due to asphyxiation because they got caught up. They were not able to flee the place when these guys were showing up there. Many of these guys were also yelling or screaming, hooray for the Jalisco Nueva Generación boss, who is called Oseguera. I can't remember his name. Mencho Oseguera. Mencho is his nickname. Mencho Oseguera is the leader of Cartel Jalisco New Generation. And they were just praising him and just saying that they were people from Mencho, and they were just celebrating him as they were doing all this destruction and terrorizing people. So the worst part was in Ciudad Juárez, sadly. I'm not saying that this was not bad, but just we have to put it in perspective. And fortunately here, sadly for the people of Ciudad Juárez, fortunately for the people here, nobody was injured in those activities on Friday. That diminished on Saturday, but we got more cases on Sunday night in Mexicali. And we actually have about 4 cases on the last hours of Monday in Ensenada. We are still seeing if all of this has been related to the same effort due to organized crime, or are just copycats, because unfortunately, that also is happening. Some of the cases in Mexicali that happened on Sunday night were, according to the chief of police there, just copycats were just taking advantage of the situation.
I see. Well, that's interesting, because until someone takes responsibility, even if they do, all the talks about like what cartels are what, that's just like in theory, right? Because you don't know who's doing what. Am I understanding correctly?
Well, yes, because it's not like when a terrorist organization claims responsibility for a bombing in the Middle East, for example. But here the thing is, now the authorities are saying that it was not just one, but different organizations. They blame it mainly on Jalisco New Generation because it's one of the, along with the Sinaloa cartel, more broadly extended in the different states. And in this particular case, they can link it in the case of Jalisco and Guanajuato because they got information of these two bosses getting into a meeting, and that's why they reacted. In the case of Ciudad Juarez was different because everything began there with a dispute within inmates of the local jail, where there are clearly two factions from the two main organizations who have been controlling turf in Ciudad Juarez. Here we were not sure because unfortunately we have not just one or two, we have three drug cartels or trafficking organizations who have been acting or delinquent for several years right now, which is the Jalisco New Generation, the one we talk about, which is the relatively newest organization. The Sinaloa cartel, who has been from the cradle of drug trafficking in Mexico, the state of Sinaloa, expanding the routes that I'm sure they know. El Chapo from the Narco series, very popular now, has been the public enemy number one, according to Chicago, for about 8 years ago, and now in a jail in New York. But their sons and their associates are still operating their trafficking organization along different routes in Mexico, and Baja California is one of those routes where they have a strong presence. And also the Arellano Felix drug organization, the so-called Tijuana cartel that is very popular, has its own series on Netflix as part of Narcos Mexico. This is the relevance of these kids who grow up as criminals at the border between Tijuana and San Diego. So nobody has claimed responsibility as in other cases, but I think it's safe to know that these are the main suspects. In the case of Tijuana, it's also the possibility that the feud between these three organizations was an excuse for this level of violence. I mean, everybody's trying to be the strongest force. So they challenge themselves not only on the streets, but on social media. And this was also a way to challenge the authorities, because even though the authorities reacted quickly and kind of subdue more or frustrate more events, they were able to burn 15 cars at the end of the week, and were 36 in different areas in different cities. So that is not something that you can say. Now the authorities, the military chief of the country, saying, well, in Tijuana they didn't attempted against the civilians. Well, they did. They didn't kill them, but they burned their property and they disrupted the whole operation. So we are also seeing very carefully the way the local and national authorities are reacting, because we were lucky now, but this is probably will happen again if there's not a really strong response from an intelligent response from the authorities.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry if this is silly, but is there any deeper meaning to it being specifically public transportation? Like, it just seems so specific to like target how civilians are like transporting themselves. Is it just like a show of power to be like, we're going to make everyone freeze, or is there any deeper meaning to like what they're targeting?
Not that I understand so far. I mean, for me right now is because as they did, they were successful in bringing the city to a halt. I mean, we went out and just think this was a Friday summer night in Avenida Revolución, who has seen a renaissance for the last 10 years. There's a lot of people coming from the U.S. side and from Mexico to enjoy the gastronomy local, the bars, the party scene was dead. The only people we found there Friday night was workers that were not able to find an Uber, or the Uber was. I talked to some of the Uber drivers, the Didi drivers told me it went from one to $7. Something will cost you $10. We're costing, the price was now $70 due to the high demand and poor offer. So no, I don't find another explanation so far with the information that we have until now that could explain. But they did reach a big impact with these relatively easy actions after all these coordinated attacks.
Yeah, it's probably worth mentioning the context of one of Guzman's kids was arrested in, I believe, 2018. I'm not good at dates, but around then. And there was a huge increase in violence immediately following that, right? And eventually AMLO, the president, gave the order to release him. And
that was more recent. Was Ovidio, one of the main sons in something that we call the Culiacanazo. Culiacan is the name of the city, is the capital of the state of Sinaloa. As we said, I have family. My mother is from Sinaloa, and some people from Sinaloa get offended when we say that it's the cradle of drug trafficking in Mexico, because most of the power, the drug laws come from Sinaloa. But yeah, you're right. And that's something that has become a big recurrent topic when people criticize, especially the political opposition, criticize the current president, because they said this is the origin of these kind of demonstrations. So when the government wants to act, now the criminals know that a coordinated effort to get out on the streets and to show their muscle could make the government to think twice, to hold their operation and to free, in some cases, these guys. Again, in the case of Jalisco, they were on the way, according to the official statement from the Mexican army, to try to capture these two leaders, but didn't happen. I mean, the criminals get organized to blockade the actions of the authorities. In the case of Tijuana, we didn't get to that point. It was more like, there's also one theory which says that the local chapter, so to speak, of the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación was just trying to replicate what happened there, just to show the force, to demonstrate the muscle as a criminal organization here in Tijuana.
Yeah,
that's basically the two theories. That this a dispute between them, and the other one is that they were just replicating a little bit in a different dimension, so to speak, what happened in Mexicali, just to tell them, you do the same here, this is what you're going to be facing. And that was a message for the authorities.
Yeah, I saw a resident compare it to what it was like in the early stages of COVID, like how ghost town it was. And I mean, when you think about it, that's pretty powerful if a cartel can have the impact of a pandemic, if not more so. It's terrifying. I can't imagine.
I think it was worse when we went out when COVID first began in the lockdown. And this will be too silly, but there's the red light districts that never sleeps here. We went to that particular corridor. Nobody was in the main drag there, but it's a reality. When we went out and we got video of this streets basically empty.
Yeah, your video on your Twitter, we'll find a way to link to it, was incredible. It was just like, it's normally like the Strip in Las Vegas or something, and it was just a ghost town.
A ghost town, yeah. Again, the only people we found there was people looking for transportation.
Yeah, it's crazy. So there's been a massive, at least, show of state power in Tijuana in the last, 4, 5, 6 months. Like, they're constantly rotating new troops in. They do the parades with the big flag. And it's like, to looking from the outside, from a less informed perspective, it looks like there are these various actors, right? And each of them sort of flexes their muscles in a different way. And is that relevant here? Has the army, they discovered a tunnel, if I remember correctly. Have they done much else in Baja since they started these big deployments?
No, that's one of the main complaints of the locals, organizations, civilian organizations here, because even though we have, I make some notes, and we have 5,660 soldiers right now in the state of Baja California, most of them in Tijuana, who have been deployed since August last year, which is when the national strategy of peace, as the government called it, began. But unfortunately, I can give you another statistics. We have only, just in Tijuana, in the municipality of Tijuana, so far this year, almost 1,200 homicides. I mean, we as a city, as a municipality, we have way more homicides than many Mexican states. This is the level of violence that we are dealing with in a daily basis. And this is when you hear the authorities talking about a reduction on homicides, which is true, probably true in terms of the numbers of statistics, but still, 1,000, we are a little bit past half the year, and we already passed 1,000 homicides. I mean, when people get alarmed in Chicago is when you are hitting, I remember a couple of years ago, like 500, and the whole year. We have this in 3 months. And this is the kind of problems that we're dealing with. But you have to also keep in mind, last week, the DOJ of the US, the FBI, the DEA, Customs and Border Protection have a gathering to announce that San Diego became the epicenter for smuggling of fentanyl. 60% of the seizures of fentanyl in all the nation occur between San Isidro, the main port of entry here in San Diego, to Calexico. There are 6 ports of entry in this stretch of land on the end of the border, on the western end of the border. Well, these places is where more than half of the fentanyl that is being smuggled to the US, it's going through. That will explain partly the level of violence that we've been dealing, and how, even though there's good efforts by the local authorities, state and local authorities, I mean, even given that there's cases of corruption as in any other agency, I would say that we have great, very capable detectives and police officers in Mexico, but in many cases, there's no political will from their bosses to really act on the benefiting the public. So this is the kind of the problem that we're dealing in. Fentanyl is now the most lucrative drug to transport or traffic between Mexico and the US, even with all the problem that is causing in the US, with more than 120,000 people dying in the last year or overdoses linked to opioids. But also now we have a problem that is growing with people dying with fentanyl overdose. Besides the fentanyl, the methamphetamine problem that also has been increasing the traffic here. And now we are seeing the comeback of some drugs trafficking and new levels like heroin and cocaine, who came out of fashion for a while, but now is doing like kind of a resurgence, at least in this corridor.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Like there's been an increase specifically coming through that Baja California area. Maybe then we should explain a little bit about these 3 actors, right? The CJNG, we'll call them the Cartel de Sinaloa, and the Arellano Felix or Tijuana Cartel. Can you explain a little bit about who they are and where they sort of fit into this, or where they come from, maybe?
Well, I basically all come from the people watching Netflix, Narcos and Netflix, they talk about this federation of cartels. Again, everything, the main power was from the state of Sinaloa, and between mid-90s, 1994, mid-90s, when the arrest of Felix Gallardo, they reestablished, they distributed the routes, and one was the one of the Pacific, along the Pacific, from Sinaloa to along the Pacific, and they basically cut the country into the main routes, and then you have different organizations. Those organizations who used to be together became a powerful house on their own, and that has increased the violence from the 90s, because now you have, from the beginning, the Arellano Felix, who used to be partners with El Chapo, ended up in disputes and feuds among them. So the main one the main one and oldest is the Sinaloa cartel, head by the Chapo Guzman, and now Ismael El Mayo Zambada, which is still a gentleman around probably getting to his 80s. I'm not quite sure, but who has been on the run for many years, but relatively calm and with big investments and with the high presence here in Baja California, with that faction of the Sinaloa cartel. And the Sinaloa cartel also, after the arrest of El Chapo, it's run, and the other big faction for the sons of El Chapo Guzman, Ovidio, and they call it Los Chapitos. Little Chapos.
Yeah, the little Chapos.
There's like three Ivan Archibaldo, and I can't remember the name of the other one. So that's a Sinaloa cartel with presence, but it mainly in the northern part, and really mainly basically their thing is to manufacturing methamphetamine and now fentanyl and send it to the U.S. Then the Arellano Felix Drug Organization, who became, as a result of that division, that distribution, that according to the most commonly known narrative about drug world, Felix Gallardo distributed after his arrest, established themselves in Tijuana. They are from Sinaloa too, but they established themselves from Tijuana in the 80s, but the 90s, they became powerful on its own. And they, due to the proximity of San Diego and to the fact that they mix with many of the border lifestyle elite of Tijuana, they changed the image of the drug trafficker. They became more entrepreneurs, and they wanted to become the first Mexican cartel, Colombian Pablo Escobar style, according to the narrative, no? And they did. They became, in the 90s, they were one of the most powerful drug organization in the world for the amount of not just marijuana, but cocaine that they were moving. I mean, they established relationships with Colombia. And after a while, Colombians were not trafficking in Mexico. They were just sending the drug to the Mexicans. At the beginning, Colombians were kind of leasing the routes in the Mexican territory to send the drugs into the U.S. But then when this division of and newcomers and the drug trade in Mexico, they decide, and I think the Arellano Felix have something to do with that. They want to go and get the drugs from Colombians in South America and bring in and just take care of the whole thing. So it become their own cartel. And then Jalisco Nueva Generación is another offshoot is what you call it? Like a spin-off kind of would be another way of the Sinaloa cartel, because they used to have a presence in Guadalajara, and the different factions were killing each other, changing loyalties, and they became a force on their own after a big division between the Beltrán Leiva group and the Ignacio Coronel organization, and they become their own cartel on its own. And that's where, according to the DEA and also Mexican authorities, is expanding more rapidly in very short period of time. And then, unfortunately, have been moving not only to drug trafficking, but there's many small groups that now are making their money, and the old way of the mafia, the Cosa Nostra, was doing their money in New York in the 70s or before, no? That they were just extorting money out of local businesses, from a well-established chain of stores to a little taco stand on the corner. There's also the trafficking of gasoline in Mexico, and has been doubling. I mean, anything that once they get powerful, they began to move to other activities. For example, in the case of the Arellano Felix, kidnapping wasn't a thing, let's say, before the 90s in Baja California. They were kidnapping people who used to be their associates. Is the where's my money kind of thing, no? Like, you think about Goodfellas, and they were killing each other. There is everything among themselves. But later they began that they were acting with a lot of impunity. That they had a lot of cops and authorities on their payroll, so they began to move to other ways to earn money, and that's what we are seeing now. That this expanding this little, in Colombia, they used to call it baby cartels. We now have like a new chapters, smaller organization, not as powerful, but as violent as the original.
I wanted to ask, because I saw a lot of these, like, supposedly, like, they come up on TikTok or Facebook, right? They're these little announcements from the different cartels. And they tend to say, at least in the context of Baja California, that, like, we don't want to disrupt ordinary people or good citizens of Baja California, you know, but we need you to stay in your homes this weekend, right? Things like that. But it obviously does have an impact on the people who are just sort of doing whatever they do, just running their business. So I was wondering sort of how people get through these difficult times in Tijuana and Baja California.
Well, times are becoming more difficult because many people believe this because the widespread possibility of disseminating these messages, no? And you never know which ones are real and which ones are not. I mean, you guys have the same with the gangs. Remember, like, don't blink your headlights because then the gang will start killing people left and right. So take that on steroids now with social media and now everybody with a phone that can get that messages. And that played a big role in what happened on Friday here in Tijuana. They were recycling a video of three guys videotaping themselves in front of the Attorney General's office in Tijuana, says, "Oh, Mencho is here. We're gonna kill everybody," and just being very loud and with a lot of insults and trying to scare everybody, the rivals, but everybody else. So during the hours of Friday, somebody began retweeting that when it was at least a year-old video of them claiming that they were already here. So some people think, well, all this commotion happening, all of this cars burning, they didn't know exactly what was going on. Some people began to call in narco bloqueos, that just scare more people. And then you see this, so the level of anxiety increased significantly. You have to be very careful. And you have to also keep in mind the political feuds that we are seeing. What you are seeing between some people loyal to Trump and the Republican Party and some people that are against Trump is the same here with Morena and non-Morena actors, or people who likes the Morena, which is the political party created by the current president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, or the ones who are against them and are very unhappy or angry with all these social policies. And for example, we have here a television station owned by the former governor of Baja California, who is a very close friend of Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the current president, who became a very powerful figure. And due to his proximity with López Obrador, basically the current president revived this gentleman, which, by the way, lives in San Diego, in Chula Vista, in a big mansion, because he exiled himself from about 30 years ago when he was associated with the last PRI government, the political party to run Mexico for 70 years in a row. He was a very close associate with Xicoténcatl Leiva Mortera, which was the current governor, who didn't finish his term because the then president of Mexico, Carlos Salinas, accused him of corruption, so he just removed him. And this guy, Jaime Bonilla, became a pariah. So the PIN, the new power, basically marked him because also he has some previous suspicious relationships through the baseball team here in Tijuana and from other endeavors that makes them look like very close to the Arellano Felix drug organization. The Arellano Felix drug organization has been linked for many years with the last administration because they claim that last PRI administration is the one who basically opened the door for the Arellano Felix to establish here in Baja California. So this is what we are seeing, that this message, well, now this guy who just left the office, the Jaime Bonilla just finished his governorship on December last year. So there's a new governor, but he also owns a television station. So he, who is always criticizing the current governor, which is, by the way, the same political party, was using some of these messages with no proof or no validity or very suspicious. And he was saying in their newscasts, were saying, well, there's also this happening, there's this threats, and they know that this government is corrupt. And they were just adding to the fire. And I mean, as an analogy, not to the real fire, but to the concern of the people.
Right.
And in this term, like saying that, oh, we're going to start a lockdown and we'll be toque de queda. What's the word for the expression for toque de queda? Like you cannot go out in the street. The martial law.
Quarantine.
Martial law.
Yeah.
Martial law will start at 6. If we see you on the streets, we're going to kill you. That was a message that television station was repeating once and again every day. So was just adding to it. So all these new novelties, so to speak, with the digital era are also creating bigger fires in the political spectrum and in a place where you never know what exactly the line is between the criminals and the government.
Yeah, I think that's a very good thing to highlight, actually, this idea that there's like distinct blocks, right? Like, and this applies in, I don't want to say like this is a Mexican thing because it's not, this is a global thing, but like that there's a distinct block between like crime and media that you consume and the government and the people that like are working for the state. Like the idea that these are very separate and they're walled off doesn't apply here, and I don't think we should see it elsewhere either.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's becoming worse and worse, no? Because these factions now have this other arena. I mean, we are seeing it here also with the official statements from the authorities. I mean, I was telling you earlier that the military had the secretary of the military says, well, in Tijuana they didn't went against the civilians, and the governor also repeated that. So, well, here, fortunately, they didn't affect the life of the people. Of course they did. I mean, we were lucky they didn't kill anybody, but no, they did. And so you have to also be fighting that propaganda from the government against the propaganda from the criminal groups and the different legal factions in other, quote unquote, non-state actors, just to put it in a different context. So it's becoming very difficult. No? And I always say, excuse me if I repeat this, but I honestly believe, I mean, there's always great investigators, detectives in Mexico, willing to put their lives on the line for the good of people, but it's not always in the best conditions. And this is like just the character of Traffic. Probably you guys were very young when Traffic came across. I mean, a very popular movie, which is about from the 90s, end of the 90s, probably. Yeah. Where one of the three main characters is an honest Mexican cops. Fortunately, I met several of cases like that, but some of them have been killed due to their honesty, but also others that learn to survive and play along and try to do as much good as they can within the circumstances they are dealing with.
Yeah. I think talking of good investigators who are trying to deal with difficult circumstances, maybe you should touch on the violence against the press that we've seen in Baja California and in Mexico as a whole. Is that something you're comfortable talking about?
Yes. Unfortunately, and this is terribly sad, a couple of hours ago, we just learned that one of the reporters who was reported missing in the neighboring state of Sonora was being found dead. So we have another killing of a reporter. We also saw that the case of Ciudad Juarez, they killed 4 employees or 4 workers of a radio station.
Yeah, that was
among
terrible.
Them a broadcaster. Yeah,
apparently
randomly.
Okay.
Yeah. But depending on which toll you look to, because there's like the official from the government, federal government, from the CPJ, the Committee to Protect Journalists, or Reporteros Sin Fronteras, other organizations, varies. No, but there's about 10 or 15 between, I would say 10 or 14 or 15 journalists or media workers killed so far this year, We have 2 of those killings happening here in Tijuana in January. One of them, I'm convinced by now that he was killed for the leader of a drug trafficking cell who was operating in the east side of the city, who wasn't pleased with some of the stories that one of the media outlets, his name is Margarito Martinez, one of the media outlets that Margarito was working to as a freelancer was publishing very revealing stories about the operation of this drug trafficker. So he ordered and paid for some other people to kill Margarito because he, in my humble opinion, was the weakest link because he was living in the same neighborhood that these guys were operating, working the night shift that is very common, that only a few of them are left to do that shift, that beat. He was easily identifiable for the crooks because Margarito will show up at the crime scenes. And in many of these cases, you have people who work for the same organization showing up to make sure that the guy was really killed and who showed up. And I mean, even when the killing is done, the criminals are still working the scene. And in some cases, we met with these guys without knowing. I mean, these guys were even willing to go to the funeral of Margarito. The only reason they were not there is because when they approached, they saw a lot of military presence during the funeral. So I'm convinced that Margarito was killed due to his work as a photographer. In the other case of my friend, old co-worker, Lourdes Sandoval, I'm not sure what was the motive. In both cases are 3 people in jail, but the procedure is still on the beginning stages. We are not proved. And the main thing is we don't know who ordered and paid for their killings. Well, we know, or I think I have a big suspicion about which one is the guy who killed them in the case of Margarito, not in the case of Lourdes, and the authorities, I'm not confident enough that they're going to be able to solve the crime in these particular cases. The other, I mean, there's 2 cases in Michoacán, there's other cases in Tamaulipas. I guess by now we have to count at least 2 or 3 in Sonora with the sad news that we got today. So it's difficult. I mean, not everybody is risking their life when they're doing journalism in Mexico. But you never know when the danger will jump against you. I always tell this story about a photographer who was called to cover a traffic accident. Minor thing, no, not relevant. Well, the problem is that the guy who was involved in the traffic and in the accident was a drug lord, a very well-known operator, very dangerous operator, and he kept taking pictures. Thanks to some of the officers, firefighters, and ladies who saw that he was being treated not very nicely, and the ladies that intervened, he was able to get away. He had to leave town for a while. That's it, but that's the kind of environment that we are dealing with. It's not that every story puts you in danger, but you never. I mean, you can do a lot of. You can be a reporter and not be in danger. You don't get into subjects that are tricky. You don't dig up too much in political corruption, and you don't dig up too much on drug trafficking, on kill and homicides. You're pretty much going to be able to do fine. But the problem is sometimes if you are doing a story non-related, there may be some link to put you in danger, and that's the situation. And unfortunately, the level of impunity on crimes against journalists is even worse than the level of impunity of general civilians in Mexico. I will say that in general is about 90%, especially 98%, and 98% for case of journalists, 90% on civilians. So our case is worse. The possibility of somebody will be punished for killing you, it's very, very, very small.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's terrible.
I don't know. Again, like you said, it's not just a Mexican problem. You see it in so many governments across the world where press are targeted specifically. But yeah, and I appreciate your work even more, knowing that the percentage of cases or just violence against you is so high, against you as a journalist is so high.
It's very sad and it's very disencouraging. But I always, I have a family who is not happy because I'm still working. On Friday they call me. They want me to stay at the office. They don't want me to get out. And I understand perfectly. And it's one of my main concerns. But also, on the other hand, it's this is important information. Even when we are dealing with an avalanche of information that is not necessarily well treated, we need to have good information so people will make good decisions. We are in a very small, young democracy. We just began to make inroads on electoral democracy. It's relatively recent, began basically at the end of the 90s here in Baja California and has been moving to the 2000s. And now we are unfortunately back in many ways, but now you can rely now on who is running the elections. To get that information was very important. Now we need to be also very make a lot of big efforts to explain people that you can make progress. Mexico is making progress even in these dire conditions, but you have to pay attention and also try to learn where the information is coming from. That not all the media is the same. That we come from a big tradition of government-controlled media. Now media control or subdue drug trafficking organizations. And in some cases, both are linked and working in cahoots to give you trouble. And also there's a lot of press that has chosen to just go with the flow and just leave out of propaganda. And sometimes they do good things, like they go and give voice to the people in the local community, so the water is reestablished, or there's more need to fix a park or to public transportation, and they do good. It's important. All the job of the reporters is good, but in the bigger dimension, of the bigger problem, they tend to be on the side of the government, because the government found this way to give you a lot of public advertisement and to have you under their control. And many reporters want to be good journalists, but their editors, or the owners of the companies, are not willing to risk that easy way to get a lot of money from the government and more easily than to start putting themselves on the risk, which implies when you do heavily digging or criticizing the powers of being, no?
Yeah. How would someone know that they're getting accurate information in that case? This applies to like every country in the world. You have to really be conscious and like seek out particular sources. But like in this case, what do you recommend for people?
It's difficult. You're right. It's the same problem everywhere, but I guess the same recipe works here. I mean, just double check their sources. Try to compare several media outlets and to see where is reporting, whether each of them is reporting. The same way that you find the way they are leaning in the US is what you find here. But the problem is the established media, or the traditional media, is becoming less relevant, because most of the main good journalism is done by small rebels who began their own entities, their own platforms. I mean, some cases there's good reporters working for good media outlets. Normally, those are not local. I mean, when you see the big media companies, they don't have, with some exception, but they don't have many people doing good journalism at the local level. You will find good local journalism with these renegades or rebels that have people who have been fired from the big, larger organization. And you have to be looking for those options. I mean, that doesn't mean that it's a guarantee that they're gonna be independent completely. But you also learn how to read them. For example, there's a good case of two reporters who just were they resigned or were fired. We don't know exactly, but they, from a well-prestigious publication locally, they began their own operation. They are good, proven as a reporters. You know what I'm trying to say, that they have
a good track record.
Reporters.
Yeah,
a good track record.
Record. Yeah,
I thought that was what it was. I was just like, I actually don't know. I don't know phrases either. Yeah.
They made a name from themselves doing good journalism with other publications. So they began their own media outlet, and some people was complaining about they were too close to some state agency with the new government, and they have great information. They do good reporting, but you have to look carefully and which type and where are they leaning to. So I always read them. I just take it with a grain of salt, as you will say in English, to try to balance my intake of information from different sources. It's difficult to tell the people because they are not the general public is not as involved or interested in media on the newspaper or on the news like we are, because we live out of it. But people is doing their life and making the will to move around, no, for all of us in different fronts, as a doctor, as a housewife, as a teacher, and they don't have enough time to analyze media the way you do. So I think we need to do a little bit of that. Try to tell them, this is for this reason, we believe this media outlet is leaning in this direction. This is subsidized or is getting, we do that sometimes. This is getting this amount of money from the government and not this amount of money from the government. That will give you a hint to take it and to see who are they dealing with. I mean, there's guys who have been working for the government now are back to reporters. I mean, there's cases like that in the U.S. Stephanopoulos used to work for the one of the presidents, no? And the guy of Hardball from MSNBC used to work for Nixon. No? So, I mean, we see this, but in this environment, it's more difficult to leave out those connections, and it's always tricky to be moving from government jobs to journalism jobs because it's not. I mean, you have to. When in my perspective, I never worked for the government. I hope I would never have to do it, but I respect the ones they do. But we need to be more transparent in that sense to be able to be fair with the people.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's this interesting development in Mexico that I've seen in some areas. Like, if I want to learn about like what's happening in the Yaqui Pueblos in Sonora or in Chiapas, like these people who will just be like citizen reporters on Facebook doing very local reporting. That seems to get really popular, but that they'll sort of blow up really quickly doing this like Facebook only reporting. It's really interesting.
Because there's a big need of information, and they know many people in Mexico have learned to be distrustful of the quote unquote legacy media. That was the expression I was looking for. Legacy media, the big companies. And the problem is there's this risk that many of those new media outlets, which is basically Facebook accounts or TikTok accounts now, the people doesn't know how to deal with. I mean, they have good intentions, but they don't really know how journalists should work. And in some cases, they think, for example, that they can take money for different actors, and that will help them to grow. And I guess you can, but you have to be very careful. And this has been a big problem that I'll try to emphasize every time I talk about our situation. For many years, the government was too close, or the reporters were too close to the government. The government will make easy with a lot of privileges for the reporters. So they learned to deal in this, to work in this scenario. So if I was close to the government, they will expedite a lot of things for me, so to speak. I can get good money. I can get probably a license for a bar way quicker than somebody who doesn't have that access to the government. I can probably get like taxi licenses, for example, because I'm a reporter, because I'm close. I can get close to the movers and shakers in the political arena, no? But so they did that. And when the drug trafficking, when the narcos became another power, many many reporters began to see it in the same way. So they were cozy with the government was empowered, and then were cozy with the businessmen, and they were cozy with the unions because they were giving them handouts or treating them preferentially, or they were able to do some traffic of influence who will give them some benefits. When the narcos became a regional power on their own, some of the reporters didn't see the difference or getting too close to that power. And that has put a lot of the reporters in danger. I think the reporters are learning a little bit more to stay away from those. But there's also, with the advancement of social media, many people who are really crooks, or that they were not very interested in doing things ethically from the beginning, that now see that with a Facebook account, with a TikTok account, or Instagram, or any other platform, you can pass by a reporter. So there's this need of information, but also is filled with good and bad people, as in any other cases. No, I always tell them, I mean, it's just the old analogy of a gun. Is the gun bad or good? Well, depends on the circumstances you are using it, no? I think.
Yeah.
I'm not a gun guy, but and I don't want to get into your political discourse about your First Amendment. Or which one is this?
Oh, that's
Second Amendment.
Yeah, that's a whole other episode. Yeah.
Neither do we. Yeah, that's fine. Shireen, did you have anything else?
No, that was awesome. Thank you so much for all the information.
Yeah, and talking of reliable media, where can people find you online? Where can they find your work? Where can they find your social media?
The main thing is TijuanaPress.com. That's our main platform. It's just an online native media outlet. It's not a newspaper. It's just when we have been changing our way of work, because we began as a daily. We no longer do that because we don't have enough resources for that, but also there's plenty of daily media outlets, digital media outlets for the daily stories. But we want to do a little bit more in-depth, more investigative, more give you context of what is going on. We are in Spanish, but you can follow us on Twitter on @TijuanaPress. Because we try to, with our poor English, try to do some tweets on English with the help of Google Translator or other other colleagues that will correct our spelling. But that's the main way to get a hold of us.
Well, I think your English is great. You talked to us for an hour and I understood everything. But thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you, Vicente.
No, thank you guys. It always help us to spread the word and to be able to put ourselves to be judged by the public. This is what is more important for us. But we don't invest in algorithms from any social platform because we believe in that the people will be willing to find us if they are really interested, and you guys help us in that sense.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll be here if we could be of any help.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
Hey everyone, it's Emily Simpson and Shane Simpson from the Legally Brunette podcast.
Each week, we're bringing you true crime through a legal lens.
Whether you want all the facts on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, or you still need to wrap your head around the Diddy verdict, we're breaking it all down step by step.
And we're not just lawyers, we're also husband and wife. It makes for some pretty entertaining episodes.
Listen to Legally Brunette on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong with a podcast called The Red Weather.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to everybody.
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'm going back to my hometown to uncover the truth.
You can now binge all episodes of The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever feel like you're being chased by the marriage police? Welcome to Boys and Girls, the podcast where dating isn't dating. Arranged marriage is basically a reality show, except the contestants are strangers and your entire family is judging. You're sipping coffee with one maybe, grabbing dinner with another, and praying your karmic Ken or Barbie appears before your shelf life runs out. Trust me, I've been through this ancient and unshakable tradition. I jumped in hoping to find love the right way, and instead I found chaos, cringe, and comedy. And now I'm looking for healing. Boys and Girls dives into every twist and turn of the arranged marriage carousel. The meet awkward, the near misses, the heartbreak, and let's not forget all the jokes. Listen to Boys and Girls on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know Roald Dahl, the writer who thought up Willy Wonka, Matilda, and the BFG. But did you know he was also a spy?
Was this before he wrote his stories? It must have been.
Our new podcast series, The Secret World of Roald Dahl, is a wild journey through the hidden chapters of his extraordinary, controversial life.
His job was literally to seduce the wives of powerful Americans.
What?
And he was really good at it.
You probably won't believe it either.
Okay, I don't think that's true.
I'm telling you, the guy was a spy.
Did you know Dahl got cozy with the Roosevelts, played poker with Harry Truman, and had a long affair with a congresswoman? And then he took his talents to Hollywood, where he worked alongside Walt Disney and Alfred Hitchcock before writing a hit James Bond film. How did this secret agent wind up as the most successful children's author ever? And what darkness from his covert past seeped into the stories we read as kids? The true story is stranger than anything he ever wrote. Listen to The Secret World of Roald Dahl on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to It Could Happen Here, a podcast about things falling apart and how to put them back together again. Now, a thing that has fallen apart that we have talked about at length before is the protection of the right to abortions previously enshrined in Roe v. Wade and no longer enshrined in that. And we've come at this from a number of angles, but one angle that we've neglected so far is the labor angle. And okay, so for reproductive autonomy to exist, right, you need healthcare. And healthcare, especially under capitalism, requires labor. And that labor isn't done by, abstract organizations. It's done by workers who are facing not only sort of the maul of the death of Roe, but the intransigence and often the belligerence of their own bosses. And here to talk with us about that is Crystal Grabowski and Elizabeth Villanuevo from the wonderfully named UE Local 696. And I'm going to read a pseudo legal disclaimer here, which is that they are not representing Planned Parenthood. They do work at Planned Parenthood. They are not representing Planned Parenthood. They are there representing themselves as individuals.
And our local union.
Yes. Proud members of Local 696.
Impeccably named union.
Yeah.
Purposefully named for any
Well, they were like, you have to choose a number that starts with 6. And then we just looked at each other and we had that moment where it's like, yes. And then we can add another one and it'll be a good time.
It's just a nice, fun little threesome of numbers.
Yeah. Healthy, safe. It was good.
This is our round one of pro-union propaganda. Join the union and you too can be in Union Local 69.
Or what if they told you the number could start with 4?
Yeah.
Boom. There's just so many options. I'm sure there's other fun numbers that besides those, but
you have the entire world in front of you.
Yeah, we could have done 666.
You could do boobs.
Can you imagine if we did 666
as
an abortion worker union? We could have. We had that choice, and we went with 696.
Yeah, this
is we're a sexual health organization. It's
to prove that workers will always make the right decision.
Yes, this is the power of the union.
We can evaluate these decisions when it's important and do the right thing.
So yeah, thank you two so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us. We're both super excited.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us. Us lowly abortion workers. So
I'm gonna dispute heavily with the term lowly. Y'all are the people who make all of this possible. So yeah,
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, and now having said all of this, I'm going to ask you a very depressing question, which we've asked a lot of the people who've talked about abortion access, who work in abortion access stuff this question, but I think you two had a very different experience of it. What was it like on the day when Roe died?
Do you want to go first, Crystal?
Yeah, I've talked about this a lot because I'm getting asked a lot, and I'm happy to talk about it. Which is, I'm actually like, it's been hard to listen to other people talk about it because then I start getting in my feels. But like when I'm talking about it, I'm kind of like just processing it. And it's probably healthy for me, somebody would say. But it was incredibly traumatic, and it's been incredibly traumatic since the fall of Roe v. Wade and the Dobbs decision. And I'm saying this while knowing that we all knew it was coming. It was a given.
Yeah.
And it wasn't surprising. And there's just something about knowing that it's been coming for months and years that like it just did nothing to actually inform you like what would it be like. But it was like a tidal wave crashing and just like sweeping you away. And we're still swept away. The only language that I can find that's appropriate is like natural disaster language. And I keep repeating it and saying like, it's like a hurricane, it's like a tidal wave, but that is those are the words that are most fitting to me, like emotionally and just in terms of like the violence and that people are experiencing. And just the emotional and mental and bodily harm is equitable to a natural disaster.
Yeah, and I think during one of our debriefs during a particularly difficult day, this was pre-Roe, we were talking about how sometimes it's really hard for us when we can see these things coming, and yet there's nothing we can really do about it. And I know that we talked about how it felt like we were just tied to a train track, watching and waiting for that train to just come and hit us. And then when it did, it just knocked, I think, the wind out of all of us. I think we all cried for sure that day.
We all cried.
Yeah.
And I'm not even like, I don't know, like, I feel like I'm emotional and I am a crier, but I didn't think that I would sob immediately the second I saw the news. And then I always knew we were going to get a lot more calls because Elizabeth and I also answer phones in the abortion clinic. And I was like, okay, we're going to get way more calls. But like, you don't know what that feels like or looks like or sounds like. Like, what does it feel like to have 100 people calling you pretty much at the same time? What does that look like? Now I know. And it's traumatic and it's awful. And it's a natural disaster. But it's a man-made disaster, actually. It's not a natural disaster. There are people who have inflicted this upon us. And now we know what it feels like, and it's fucking awful. Oh, I should have asked if I was allowed to swear.
Oh, yeah, I swear all the time.
Okay, cool. Because like I've been on podcasts before where they were like, oh, we got to edit that out, which cool. Well, it's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, we work in healthcare. I think we swear more than the average layman because we need to keep saying somehow.
Yeah.
There's so much more to say. Like,
yeah, no, please.
I don't even know where to go from there. It's just, it's like a never ending nightmare. Because like the calls started and then it's just like, just person after person after person. They driving 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, coming from states that are like 3 states away, coming from like states in the South, people taking planes and people staying in hotels. And
we've had people pay like hundreds of dollars for an Uber.
Jesus.
And then just like bringing in the labor angle too, as like unionized abortion workers who, we have been vocal and we've been rallying and making our demands like publicly known, but we are doing this while understaffed, like skeletal crew staffing. Yeah. We didn't have enough staff before Roe fell and the Dobbs decision. And now it's bare bones. And it's like so we're taking on this tidal wave, this like man-made tidal wave, while just giving every last ounce of our energy.
Yeah.
And doing multiple roles at once.
Yeah, I don't know if you are able to tell from the fact that Crystal and I both work directly in the clinic, but we also answer calls. When we signed up for our job, we knew that we would be doing multiple things around the clinic. And it's funny to not really know what that means until you start doing it. So one day you'll be holding a patient's hand while they're having this procedure done, like giving them a little baggie in case they feel sick. You'll be talking to them on the phone. So there are days where I will meet people who I've spoken to on the phone when they called to book their appointment. And it just hits me like a tidal wave because I'm like, that's the person. Like, that's this person specifically. I remember because I remember hearing the sound of their voice. And every single time they call in, they are sobbing. This is a horrifying moment for them. This is a moment where they feel like trapped. They feel like they can't share with their family, with their friends. Depending on what state they're from and the legalities of that state, they are even afraid to make these phone calls. Like, some of the first things that patients say to us when they call in is this okay? Like, am I allowed to call you? Am I allowed to talk to you? Am I allowed to book an appointment?
Yeah.
What's going to happen next for me? And
will my appointment be canceled?
Yeah. Because we're not lawyers, because everything is so fluid right now. We don't have answers to give them. We can just say, well, you're coming to Pennsylvania and it's still legal in Pennsylvania. So,
And just to like paint the picture a little more too about like both the skeletal staffing and the emotional turmoil and the emotional weight of it. So the Dobbs decision happened on June 24th, which was a Friday, and we're in Pennsylvania. And that evening of June 24th, a trigger ban went into effect in Ohio. It was it's a fetal heartbeat bill, which is a deceptive language because it's not actually a heartbeat, but but it's technically a fetal heartbeat bill. And so people after 6 weeks could no longer access abortion services or once any sort of like electrical impulse was detected, and everyone had their appointments canceled. So we were actually at a protest, like the staff was like at a protest that evening with our doctors, our abortion providing doctors, and the news came out like, yeah, shout out to them. We love them. And we got the news that Ohio had just did this. And we were just like, oh my God, tomorrow, because we knew the second our call center and our phone lines opened, everyone whose appointment was canceled was going to be calling us. And then we pull up the staff schedule and we're like standing in the middle of the street at a protest. We pull up the staff schedule and we're like, oh my God, there is one person scheduled to answer phones right now. And it is an older woman who's been doing this since like the 70s or 80s. And it's like, we cannot like, and we were like all as a union, like, we turn to each other and we're like, oh my God, this is the situation. We cannot leave her alone.
Yeah.
We've already worked our 5 days. We already worked our 35 hours, but we are going to call ourselves into work. And we notified our managers, like, we're going to come into work and we're going to help to answer the phones for these canceled Ohio patients. Like, that was a decision that we made to work that extra time on our weekend off because it was a Saturday. But this ties into what Elizabeth was saying, where when you hear the person on the phone and then they come to you and like, it's just very emotional because like you're doing your best as a healthcare worker to get them the health service that you have been trained to provide and that you know is very important. So knowing that we were understaffed, knowing that we're not making that much money, and then just being like, I have to go in and be there. I can't leave my coworker alone because I love my coworker, and we can't, and like somebody has to be there for these patients when they're calling. And if it's not going to be the employer and the bosses, then it's going to be you. And then we did that. And then there was another clinic day. A lot of us arranged to come in for an extra work day because we were like, we have to be there for these patients.
Yeah.
So we're really giving all of our energy, and it's exhausting and traumatizing. I feel like I can't say that enough, but, and we need more staff. We need better wages. We need better working conditions because it's like at the end of some of these days, it's like, how am I going to keep doing this? My body hurts. My brain hurts. I started having like issues with my memory where like I couldn't remember anything because my brain just gave up on retaining information. And I'm like, I think this is like a trauma response. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
definitely.
overwhelmed. System shock.
I think this is one of the things you get with working for NGOs, which is that like doing something like this is like there is work that needs to be done, but the employer's not giving you the resources that is necessary to do it. Right? You have one person on a call line like the day after a fetal heartbeat bill goes into effect, and it's I don't know. It seems like one of the things that these NGOs do is they make a mistake, or they do something deliberately because they don't want to pay people, and then they don't want to pay more people, and they make you go deal with it because it has to get done because these people need you, and that
somebody has to do it.
Yeah, and that's so gross. It's disgusting.
So for me, I like to equate it as kind of like being emotionally gaslit, because the whole point of healthcare, and I've said this to other people in different healthcare roles that I've worked before, because as we know, healthcare is chronically understaffed. Like there's so many like nursing shortages, like and things. Is that healthcare is designed to draw people who want to help, who have these like very strong moral and emotional beliefs. And we are paid to care. Like it is our job to care. And that is how they can get all of these things out of us, is because it's very easy to feel emotionally manipulated when somebody's like, well, somebody has to be there for this patient, this person, this like thing that can't wait. And so a lot of us, even like I said before, I worked here at like different positions that I've held. I've been like, I will take an extra shift because somebody has to do it. And I love my job so much. I love working in healthcare. It's something I've been very passionate about since I was a small child. So I, for years, would burn myself out and be like, I'll take the extra shift at a different position. When I used to work at a care, I worked at an intermediate care facility for adults with intellectual and physical disabilities for a couple of years. And I remember routinely working 16-hour shifts, like day in and day out. I think there was like 6-7 days a week of just doubles where I would work like 16-hour shifts. I don't think I like slept or ate or did anything. And then at one point I was so burnt out that I just couldn't do it anymore. And I started to get frustrated with the people that I worked with and like the patients that I cared about. And this one particular day, I like noticed myself getting incredibly annoyed with everything that was like happening, like sounds, patients, like just being themselves. Like I didn't, take it out on anything or anyone. I just like noticed myself getting like slightly more irritated. And then I was like, this is not sustainable. I can't keep doing this. And I compared this like recent change post the Dobbs decision to what it was like when I also used to work for distributing medical equipment to hospices. It felt like every single moment was an emergency that I just did not have the resources to be able to help with. Because on one end of the line, you have somebody that is having this emergency, and then on the other end of the line, there's another person pulling you because they're also having an emergency. And so you have to kind of weigh which one of these patients like needs you the most right now, and which one of those can you reasonably help. It's like that psychology puzzle where they're like, if you move the thing on the
the lever,
like, the trolley problem.
Yeah, the trolley problem, where like one of these people will die or 7 people will die, and you have to decide which one of those you're gonna pull, because there's only so much that we can give as healthcare workers, as abortion workers, as reproductive health workers. There's only so many hours in a day, and as much as we want to keep giving, for us to keep pouring out of an empty cup is just not sustainable for ourselves. Like I know many of us have lost sleep. Many of us have stopped like being able to focus on anything outside of work because as soon as like you turn on the news or you open your phone or you like open up Twitter, there's more and more and more information because everything is consistently changing all of the time. And like West Virginia is currently having like their
Charlottesville clinic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's new. And we had a couple of calls come in from
Kentucky.
we had Kentucky. Yeah. So that was new. And we're just starting to like really have a good pattern of resources for patients coming in from like Ohio. And now we're like, okay, well, what about Kentucky? So we just like, we feel like there's just one like hole in the dam that we put our finger on, and then another one shows up. And at some point, we just have to know that we've done our best, and that it's okay to take a second to rest, and to, you know, go home and maybe like watch TV or listen to a podcast.
Yeah. But not about abortion.
Yeah. And just forget about abortion for 2 seconds. And because we will inevitably have to do it again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
This reminds me a lot of, I did an interview, like, it'll be a couple of weeks, I guess, by when this comes out, with some organizers who were like trying to do like relief and aid for the migrants who are getting bused to DC from Texas, and I think from Utah too. And it was like they were talking about exactly the same thing, where it's like we have to do this because otherwise no one's going to help these people. But like at a certain point, it's like everyone has COVID, like we just can't. And I don't know. I think it's especially frustrating that this is happening because like those people were just like, they have no resources, right? It's just a bunch of people who are doing mutual aid thing. But like this is Planned Parenthood, like they have resources. And they're not doing this. And they're doing this. I talked to a nurse who's a friend of mine a long time ago on this show. And he talked, you know, he was a nurse during COVID. He's gotten COVID twice, I think. And like, you know, he was talking about how like, yeah, he said this like thing I've always remembered was like, I've seen people die because of staffing decisions.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
It's like, it's this moral blackmail thing where it's like, in order to, this thing needs to be done, we're not going to actually provide you with enough resources to do it, and we're going to make you responsible for the consequences of our actions. And yeah, it's grotesque.
One thing that really is just kind of like part of the trauma for the workers and honestly for the patients and for everyone in our communities, because this impacts literally everyone, is just like we do turn people away. Because pregnancy is a time-sensitive issue, and you know you have to get in a certain number of weeks in order to get the type of procedure that you want, in order to get a procedure at all. And these are people that are often parents. The majority of people who have abortions are parents, and they have children and they have jobs, or they don't have like PTO, and they live 4 hours away. So it's like, how am I going to get to this appointment? So there's so many people that we have to refer. So it's so much on your soul to be on the phones, and you speak to mother after mother, like a single mother or somebody who lost a partner, or they are, they got evicted, and you're referring them to Detroit, which is also 4 or 5 hours away. And just to refer people to say, I can't help you, try calling this place. And to do that like multiple times in a row every day. And then you're working 7-hour days. It is really soul crushing, because it feels like, and like you tell yourself, like, it's my, we don't have the resources. We don't have the staff. We weren't prepared for this crisis. It's not on me, but it's very hard not to feel awful. Yeah. When you are turning people away, because I don't know I've probably turned probably over 100 people away on the phones and told them who to call. I don't know if they reached those places. I don't know if they called those places. For all I know, they continue to high risk pregnancy, and they might suffer health consequences or things that debilitate them for the rest of their life, things that make their children's lives worse. And I have no way of knowing. So it's just very traumatic to constantly be hanging up on the phone with people and just like sending them into just a desert.
I think the hardest part too is that these phone calls aren't like 2 seconds long. They're not 2 minutes. When we answer the phones, abortion appointments take about 15 to 20 minutes to schedule. So this is a half an hour that you are getting to know an individual, a person. They tell you everything about their lives. They tell you exactly what they're feeling, what they're afraid of, what they're going through, what their family's like, what their financial situation is like. And then at the end, when you tell them, or at the beginning, which I do often, just to let them know what they're getting themselves into, when you tell them that you're booking like 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out, you can just hear it in their voice that they are so scared and so desperate, and there's nothing you can do about it because there's just not enough of us. There's not enough clinic days. There's not enough hours in the day to see all of these patients. There is so much red tape that these patients have to go through to even get to this appointment. There's a 24-hour phone consent in the state of Pennsylvania. If they miss that, they can't be seen. And these are often like, depending on like the time of the phone call, some people work multiple jobs. They're like asleep. They can't make the phone call.
They're sick.
They're sick. They don't have working cell phones, or they're in a situation where they're like have intimate partner violence, so they can't be on the phone for that long without risking their personal safety, and it's just really traumatizing.
And I know that it's really common on the left and with like pro-abortion people to say like you can't stop abortion, you can only save abortion. And I totally support the sentiment behind that, because people are going to get abortions no matter what. But people also need to think about the people who give up, because I have been on the phone with someone and heard them give up.
Yeah.
And it's traumatizing, because like, you know, that you gave them the information that broke them, where they were just like, when I'm like, okay, you have to wait 4 weeks, you have to drive 4 hours, you have to do this, you have to pay this, you have to do that. And then just for them to say, I'm sorry, I don't want to waste your time anymore. I just can't do this much right now. It's just too much. And just to hear their just resignation, because, you know, I feel like, you know, working in jobs, you might have heard people just like reach that moment where they hit their point, whatever their breaking point might be, whatever the context is, whatever the topic is. But like, when it's your life and it's your health and it's your family, and they're just like, this is my breaking point, and witnessing that does happen. And it's a tragedy every time that somebody abandons what they really want and their health and their well-being. And it does happen. And that's why this is a tragedy that needs to stop. And I don't know when it's going to stop, because like, just kind of seems like it's going to keep happening and keep going and going and going. In which case the trauma is going to like move. Like right now we're like bearing the brunt of it, but it's going to like radiate from us and our patients. And we're going to see the ripple effects across the whole country.
Generational trauma that's going to continue for multiple decades.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, just on a basic like level, it's not fair that even you have to deal with this. Like this shouldn't be happening at all. Like, and it's that like all of the evil of the American settler state falling on like a bunch of people who have nothing, and then a bunch of workers who are expected to show up and have to deal with all of their trauma too every day. And it's just
like a trauma palooza.
Yeah. And it's like
flags and t-shirts.
Yeah. But and then we had a union rally recently, and we were very open in talking about how a lot of us work 2 jobs, and we have staff members who donate plasma. So it's like, we're doing this on top of a second job and donating our like bodily fluids.
I spoke at this rally and I was like, we're literally giving our flesh, blood, and tears to this whole thing. Because it's just, we love it. We love all of our patients. We care about the work. We really want to make sure that our patients are going to be okay. And I think that's why we do it, and also how we can justify feeling this way day in and day out.
I want to, I think, move from this to talking about the contract negotiation process, because Like, okay, it is not okay for anyone to have like a 14-month long contract negotiation process. It is especially not okay for you to have to do this. So yeah, can we talk about what Planned Parenthood has been doing and
Crystal might be better at answering this question because she's on our bargaining committee.
I'm on the bargaining team. Yay me.
Hey.
I've been doing this for 14 months and like just, oh God, I'm so sick of these meetings. I'm so sick of them. I'm so sick of them talking to their lawyer. It's been long. They've been really just dragging themselves. It's like carrying a dead body. Just like, it's like, oh, come on. Are you okay? We're gonna get there. You know, like we're just like dragging them, and they are afraid of everything. Everything is we got to see, we got to check, we got to look into it, and then you never hear back, or maybe you hear back like 3 months, 4 months later. They constantly want to bring in a mediator, constantly.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's nothing to mediate. Like, what are we going to mediate? You telling us that you got to get back to us? Like, what's there to mediate there? And they're like, it'll move it along. And it's like, yes, because they're doing the job for you. We want you to do it. We want you to have answers, you to figure it out. You're the bosses. You make the money. You're the one running the organization. Sorry, I started getting salty.
No, it's
the bargaining team has being on the bargaining team has really nurtured my rage. It's been very exhausting, and I know we're going to win a good contract because we are badasses, and I think we're a really strong union and really strong team. And we need a livable wage because we're getting pummeled. So it's been really frustrating, I guess. It's like, in short, it's really drawn out, frustrating, disrespectful. I feel like my time's been disrespected.
Yeah.
You know, I turn up every day for my employer in the clinic. I'm an excellent worker, and they just waste like 2-3 hours of my evening constantly. I could have been on my porch drinking tea or something. I don't know, something relaxing.
Yeah, and I guess I get the other part was like every day that they don't like sign a contract is another day they get away with not paying you, not bringing more staff, and it's
and they're constantly trying to delay contract negotiations too, where they're like, oh, if you do this, we'll give you a couple pennies, and then you won't be able to make any economic changes until the next fiscal year. And it's like, you think I want to wait till next July? I have a life. I have plans.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've talked about on the show before that like one of the most common ways that unions fall apart, and one of the things that corporations do and NGOs do to crush them is by trying to make sure the first contract fails. And it's a union busting thing, and it's grotesque, especially that it is like, okay, like with capitalist firms, like, you expect them to be union busting, right? Like that's their job. Their job is to ruthlessly smash labor. But it's like, this is an NGO. Like, their job is to provide healthcare for people. They're supposed to be a progressive organization. They're still doing this. And it's, I don't know. It seems just really grim.
It is grim, and it doesn't give a lot of hope to, I think, just everyone living in this country, because it's like, okay, so there's been I was going to say attack, but like attack doesn't feel appropriate. Like, they have gutted abortion access, hurting everybody, causing like violence to people. And who do you look to? So you would think that you would look to these progressive abortion related organizations like Planned Parenthood, National Abortion Federation, NARAL, but all of them have nothing to give, and nothing. You only hear bad news. You hear them shutting down. You hear them union busting. You hear them requiring ridiculous regulations that aren't even necessary, and it just they don't do anything to inspire hope. So it's like, well, you need, like prison culture, and Mariame Kaba says, like, hope is a discipline. So I feel like a lot of us are like always looking to like a place to exercise our hope. And you're not going to get that here with some of these organizations. I think you are going to get it in, I think, the repro unions, because I think there's a lot of us, and I think that that we are working our little hearts out. And I think you're also going to get it with some of these other organizations like abortion funds and some of the practical support organizations that are really like getting on the level of patients who are patients or former patients and are like, we're going to get people abortions. I think that's where hope is right now, but not with our employer.
Yeah, I guess that was one of the things I wanted to ask about was sort of on a macro level. I mean, basically everyone we've talked to has talked about how, like, the ability to get an abortion is based on, like, a pretty small number of people who are, like, people who are who are escorts, who are, like, a lot of times volunteers, or it's people who are, like you two, who are being, like, horrifically underpaid to do the actual work of this. And I was wondering what you two think that like the way this, like, I don't know, I guess like the way everyone has sort of been run ragged, even keeping the system how it was, like what role that played on a sort of macro level in terms of why Roe was like destroyed in the first place, and what that's done to sort of the broader movement.
I mean, they didn't do anything to prevent it. Like it's just, what have we seen? What show of force or strength or commitment to abortion access have we seen in ever, honestly? Like,
yeah,
I can't even think, other than like some loss or some legal wins we've celebrated. Like, I do remember Whole Women's Health v. Hellerstedt. What was that, 2016? That was like a win, and we were excited, and we were like, this is good news. And that's honestly the last. And that was just a court decision. So it was like not in our hands really anyways. So there's so little to work with and so little to look at outside of, I think, just some really excellent organizing from workers and practical support groups.
And I really think that our community has been fabulous this last whole like month. We all of the support that we've gotten for our like personal morale has been through like friends or local businesses or like people who know people who like are there to offer us like an ear, a hand, a cup of coffee. Some of our doctors bring in bagels, and this is like from their own pockets. We'll bring in bagels. We've had like people donate and organize to bring in like coffee and stuff. I know that Crystal was receiving a lot of like donations herself that we all use to buy ourselves like food, drinks, stuff for our
people were just like
lounge.
Sending me money for the staff.
Yeah. And I thought that was really great. But I also noticed that it came from outside sources and not from internal sources. These are all other people outside in our community who understand and value the work that we're doing and like actively listen for what we need and what we're asking for. And I think that there's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah, honestly, the most hope and the most support has come from just like regular people. You don't really see it from anyone with any actual money or power.
Yeah.
And on that note, this has been It Could Happen Here. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at HappenHerePod. And you can find Crystal and Elizabeth Union at PPWP Union on Twitter. All for part 2 of this interview. And until then, goodbye.
Hey everyone, it's Emily Simpson and Shane Simpson from the Legally Brunette podcast.
Each week, we're bringing you true crime through a legal lens.
Whether you want all the facts on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, or you still need to wrap your head around the Diddy verdict, we're breaking it all down step by step.
And we're not just lawyers, we're also husband and wife. It makes for some pretty entertaining episodes.
Listen to Legally Brunette on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong with a podcast called The Red Weather.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to everybody.
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'm going back to my hometown to uncover the truth.
You can now binge all episodes of The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever feel like you're being chased by the marriage police? Welcome to Boys and Girls, the podcast where dating isn't dating. Arranged marriage is basically a reality show, except the contestants are strangers and your entire family is judging. You're sipping coffee with one maybe, grabbing dinner with another, and praying your karmic Ken or Barbie appears before your shelf life runs out. Trust me, I've been through this ancient and unshakable tradition. I jumped in hoping to find love the right way, and instead I found chaos, cringe, and comedy. And now I'm looking for healing. Boys and Girls dives into every twist and turn of the arranged marriage carousel. The meet awkward, the near misses, the heartbreak, and let's not forget all the jokes. Listen to Boys and Girls on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know Roald Dahl, the writer who thought up Willy Wonka, Matilda, and the BFG. But did you know he was also a spy?
Was this before he wrote his stories? It must have been.
Our new podcast series, The Secret World of Roald Dahl, is a wild journey through the hidden chapters of his extraordinary, controversial life.
His job was literally to seduce the wives of powerful Americans.
What?
And he was really good at it.
You probably won't believe it either.
Okay, I don't think that's true.
I'm telling you, the guy was a spy.
Did you know Dahl got cozy with the Roosevelts, played poker with Harry Truman, and had a long affair with a congresswoman? And then he took his talents to Hollywood, where he worked alongside Walt Disney and Alfred Hitchcock before writing a hit James Bond film. How did this secret agent wind up as the most successful children's author ever? And what darkness from his covert past seeped into the stories we read as kids? The true story is stranger than anything he ever wrote. Listen to The Secret World of Roald Dahl on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to It Could Happen Here, a podcast about NGOs portraying the working class and casting reproductive autonomy to the wolves. I'm your host, Christopher Wong, and this is part 2 of my interview with Crystal and Elizabeth from UE Local 696. They are once again representing only themselves in the union and not Planned Parenthood. Yeah, so let's get back to the interview. Okay, should I do a incredibly long and drawn out metaphor about migrant workers in China?
Go for it. It's your podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a metaphor. Okay, so all right. So one of the sort of engines of Chinese economic growth for a long time is that China's economy is built on migrant labor. There are, I think it's like 250 million migrant workers. It's like if you put them together as a country, I think I got on 290. If you put it together as a country, it'd be like the 4th largest country in the world. And this was able to happen, you know, and like the sort of like the secret of the Chinese miracle is that it was a bunch of workers who were exploited horribly, and they also had a lot of these workers are coming from the countryside, and there's still sort of like kinds of forms of like communal land ownership that are left over from the socialist period there. And so what happens is you have these sort of like, I don't know, like kind of socialist collective land ownership stuff that's like basically subsidizing these workers so that they can move into the cities. And this means that their bosses have to pay, like their bosses can pay them less because part of their income and part of their support network is coming from something that's outside of the sort of system. And that's what this reminds me of, where it's like this stuff is happening because of this incredible community mobilization. Mm-hmm. And like that's where the support's coming from. But that also means that like the actual, like the organizations who are getting the most money and the most resources and who are like, you know, who are your bosses don't have to do that because it's you know, and this is the same thing with your labor too, where it's you have these like, there's this way in which solidarity is mobilized as a way to sort of like stopgap the fact that these groups don't want to pay people and don't want to give people the resources that are necessary. And so because it has to get done, people will do it, and people will donate stuff, people will help support, people will do this work. But the thing that it winds up doing is that these people are never actually forced to see the full consequences of their actions. They're never forced to like actually see what the staffing decisions like does, what the fact that they don't pay you anything like actually does. They never have to face it because people are like desperately trying to patch the boat together so it doesn't sink.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot, like, what would it be like if, one of our higher up managers turned away all of these patients and it was them?
Yeah.
What if they knew what it was like?
I remember picking up the phone a couple weeks ago, and the only thing that I heard when I picked up that phone was a blood-curdling scream. Like, this was like a scream out of a horror movie. And then there were 2 thuds, and then dead silence.
Jesus.
And I don't know what happened to that person. I don't know if they were able to call back. I didn't call back because if that person is in danger right now, I'm not going to subject them to any more danger. There's a reason that when we dial out, it's through restricted or blocked numbers. But it's moments like that stick with you. And the fact that we're having more and more of these moments where like every other call is not like exactly to that level, but like emotionally still sticks with you.
And just for some additional, just like to kind of like build out this kind of like misogynistic context that we're working in, it's actually super common to get people calling in for abortion services like in the middle of a fight with their partner.
Jesus.
I have had like men like actively obstructing the caller, and I'm trying to schedule them, and they'll have me on speakerphone and everything, and I'll be like, it was when
you were training me too. We had a couple of those.
Yeah, and I was like, are you able to get to like another place because I can't hear you over him? And and he's like, I'm not doing anything, and I'm like, I just need to be able to hear you, and like, so you get that because that's because there's people want abortions for every reason under the sun, and it's totally fine. People get abortions for lots of different reasons. But a very common reason is because their partner sucks and he's a piece of shit. He was abusive and they got to get away from him. And that's unfortunately common. Yeah. And we're on the phone getting that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get to meet them in real life too. And that's always super fun. I always say that, I say to patients constantly that boyfriends either only go one of 2 ways when we meet them in our clinic. They're either wonderful and fantastic and very supportive, or they're just the worst. And I've had patients' boyfriends who literally, while this person is mid-procedure, will be like, "You're being dramatic and you need to stop." And I'm
they'll take a phone call.
Yeah.
Or something.
They'll be playing games on their phone and they won't look at anybody. Or they'll actively leave their partner there. And these are people that like were their rides.
Oh yeah, we've had people get abandoned, yeah.
Yeah, they'll just be like, I'm done. I'm bored. And then they'll just leave.
Yeah.
And it's just so frustrating.
Lot to deal with. We have a lot to deal with as staff. And I always tell people, because I train staff at the clinic, and I'm always like, we see everything here. And when I say that, I mean it. We see literally everything. Like you just, and I'm sure there are other similar health provisions, like health services, that it's kind of similar, where you just kind of see everything. But yeah, we literally see everything, because when people come in for an abortion appointment, like we don't just talk about the procedure. We do birth control counseling, STD screening. We provide resources for housing, legal support, finding therapists, and we do so much because we're providing a comprehensive healthcare service.
Yeah.
And again, like something that we tell patients is that they can expect to be here for like 4 hours, 6 hours.
5 hours, yeah.
It depends on the individual patient, their individual needs, and what services we can provide for them. And sometimes patients need a lot of TLC, and we're not going to rush that. They're going to get the services that they need and they want, and we're going to do it on their time because they're very they're very fragile.
Yeah.
And that's not the time to rush through.
They're not always. So sometimes they're fragile, and like sometimes they're like, let's get this done. You know, I just want the whole range of we get it. Yeah. But sometimes they're very fragile. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We have had some really confident patients that I really like talking to, though, that they're very like ready to get it over with and are like, thanks for being here. And they just make my day.
Aww.
I love it when we're like, oh, because we have to do like, make sure that they're not being coerced and everything. And it's like, so, how are you feeling about everything? And they're like, I feel great. I can't wait to not be pregnant. And they're like dancing. Obviously that's nice. But, in reality, a lot of times when we ask someone how they're feeling and what's going on, we're like the first person to have asked them that in like 2 years. So then we're like opening up a space, which I'm so glad we get to do. I love working with patients. I love the services we provide. But it's what sucks and what's a failure is that I'm like the first healthcare provider to like ask them how they're feeling
and actually care
in like years. Like we get some patients who have been like chewed up and spit out by the healthcare system, and no one's ever given a shit. And we all are very good at giving a shit. So,
it really seems like just like everything that's wrong with this country gets thrown at like you specifically, because this is like, it's like every sort of like every bit of racism, every bit of sexism, like every like failure of the healthcare system, like every like, and it's not even just, like everything on a political level and on a social level that goes wrong with people's lives.
Not forget good old ableism too.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Yeah.
I think it comes up a lot with stigmatized healthcare, like abortion, and then also hormone therapy. I imagine must be pretty similar. Is you're facing a lot of obstacles that are put up by the communities, the institutions, the healthcare system, the employers, like your family.
There's I remember we did an interview with a pro-abortion activist from Mexico, and one of the things that she was talking about was she called it social decriminalization.
Oh, is it kind of like destigmatizing? Like,
yeah, but it's like I think she didn't talk about it a huge amount, but it seemed like the concept behind it was like, okay, so you have legal criminalization, but then like social stigmatization means that it's still not really legal because there's social laws against it, right? So you have to deal with both, and that struck me as like a really, I don't know, as a really powerful like way to think about it, I guess.
Is it kind of like a moral thing where people think like it's not okay to get an abortion, so you get like that pressure and that?
Yeah, and I think, and also, I mean, like it's the pressure like applied on a person from just like, like, I mean, in Mexico, is a lot of like people growing up Catholic, right? But also like it's the pressure from your family, it's the pressure from your friends, it's the pressure from everyone around you, and you have to like socially like legalize it because.
Crystal's been doing this work longer than I have. Like I said, I've only been working at our current job for a year, which I love. But definitely when I started, there were people in my life that I didn't think were going to get weird about it.
Oh, no.
Because I know a lot of liberal people. All of my friends are very liberal, very open, pro-choice, like very union friendly. And immediately I noticed that when I started talking happily about abortions, people would get really quiet and really awkward. And they would be like, that's great, I'm happy for you. But then that was like it. Like I couldn't, and I'd be like, no, but like abortions. And then
they're great.
They're great. People need them. It's an essential service.
Yeah.
And so I just upped up the ante more, and I started talking about it a lot more. And I was like, this is what I got to do. Got to weed out the weak. Like if you're uncomfortable with my job, like this is my job. I'm not going to not talk about it with you.
But yeah, that is a component to like also on top of literally everything else, like, like how hard the job is and how then we got to like rally as a union and get better wages and everything. And then we like can't even sometimes talk about it because of stigma, like with friends or family. Like I can't talk about my parent, or I can't talk with my parents about my job. So it's just like this whole big part of my life because I'm pretty much like an abortion access activist and I just can't talk about it and with them, which is just, it would be nice if I could, but I can't. Yeah. And I just kind of deal with it. And then also, even tiny normal situations like getting a haircut or getting an Uber, people ask you what you do all the time.
I lie every time.
But that's a decision you have to make because sometimes I lie and sometimes I don't know what it is. I'm like, I'm going to tell the truth. And it's like a gamble because I've told the truth before and then an Uber driver starts praying for me. And then I've told the truth before and had someone like open up to me and we have a great conversation. And then I've told the truth before and had really awkward conversations. They're like, I support abortion. I think some people have too many. And it's like, why are you telling me this? Get out of here. But
this was a decision that I made for myself personally because of this one time I took an Uber to work. And I mentioned what I did. And then that guy started like talking about me to the antis in front of our job.
Oh, I remember that.
And they were like talking about, it was a woman. It was a female Uber driver. I mentioned this to her. And she went up and was like, I think that like what you guys are doing is like, she was talking to the anti specifically. She was like, what you're doing is too aggressive. You need to buy the building next door.
Oh my God.
Set up shop there and make it less antagonizing so people want to listen to you. And then immediately in the group chat, everybody was like, who's talking to the antis? And I'm like, I just mentioned that I worked there. And it was just a lot. So after that, I was like, on my way to work at the very least, I'm just not going to talk about it. I'm going to be like, I work at a doctor's office downtown.
I know. It's like risk assessment.
Yeah.
I feel like the antis learned my name by listening for the Uber drivers. And I've gotten Uber drivers, they're like, who are you? What's your name? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you because there's a dude standing there that wants to follow me. So you're going to deal with it, Uber driver.
Yep. We got to switch up patterns when we come into work sometimes too.
And I do when I actually started, when I call an Uber to work, because I don't have a car all the time because I don't get paid that much. But when I have to Uber to work, I've started getting dropped off like somewhere else and just walking in because it's just too many problems. Too much. Like it's too much.
I get dropped off at like a different location, like a couple blocks away from work at a different spot usually. And then I just walk in.
Like if you might just want to go to work and drink your coffee and you have like your Uber driver joining the protest outside. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
Then it's worse because they picked you up. They know where you live.
Yeah. And they know your name.
Yep.
They know your name.
They want to shout your name out the door. It's like
oh, God.
Because the protesters learned my name and they like chant my name and we're like, I'll walk by and they'll be like, they're whispering my name. I'm like, what is this? This is kind of kinky, but like, yeah.
Didn't we decide that they don't actually know who you are? They just think everybody with bangs is you.
Yeah. So for the listeners, I have like pretty blunt bangs.
Yeah.
But I'm not the only worker in the building, obviously, who has bangs. But so everyone in the building, it's like, Crystal. Everybody with bangs is an abortion worker named Crystal. I guess that's reassuring, but also bad for other people with bangs because they might get killed.
Yeah.
It's like funny, but not funny. We try to like make light of it. We have to.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to ask about was Crystal. Yeah. You've had like the bosses doing disciplinary action for stuff that you've been doing in terms of union stuff. We're going to talk about that a little bit.
Technically pre-disciplinary, but I mean, like, what does it matter? Because like the point is the same, is intimidation.
Yeah.
It's very easy to do is to get your lawyer, get your HR, and have them talk to someone, and then everybody knows about it because everybody talks at work, and bad gas travels fast. And then the whole idea is to scare people into not talking to reporters, not talking to people about what's going on. And I feel like it's difficult to talk about what's been happening. Like this is like, I keep saying it, it's a national health crisis. It's a disaster. It's a tidal wave. It's a hurricane. And it's generational trauma. We're using all of these words. And then like, I feel like I'm pressured into not even talking about it because I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about how we're understaffed. I'm talking about how we're seeing patients from all over. I'm talking about how traumatizing it is. And for whatever reason, it's just more comforting for some of these organizations to hide under the table with their lawyer and just like shake in their boots and say like, we could be sued for this, we could be sued for that. And what if that happens? What if this happens? And like, for me, it's like, well, you know what if someone dies because we can't get them in and they can't get to us because of legislation and there being no healthcare infrastructure? Because part of healthcare is also getting to the appointment.
Yeah.
So if like none of that exists and like people are suffering because of it, like I just can't keep my mouth shut about that. And I definitely feel like as like somebody, a member on the bargaining team, and I also emceed our rally, I feel like there's been a lot of pressure on me and my big mouth. I feel like they were trying to intimidate me and scare me. And I'm blessed for a couple of reasons. Number one, my dad, who is otherwise conservative and doesn't support anything that I do, but he was a union steward. And growing up, I would see him resolving conflict as a union steward. And that was very influential and inspirational to me because it really instilled some good values, even though we don't have the same values,
yeah,
obviously. But there's that. Like I developed like a strong sense of labor rights and labor activism from him. And then two, my first career choice was a middle school teacher. So I taught 7th and 8th grade for about 7 years. So like literally nothing scares me because after you've talked to a cafeteria full of 120 13-year-olds, it's like, that's it. That's like the scariest thing ever. So I'm not really afraid of the bullying and the intimidation, which is good because it definitely is very effective. And I'm sure a lot of people would be pissing themselves, but I'm pissing myself a little bit, but no, I'm fine. I have a second job after all.
Even that, like, that's like, fuck. The fact that you have to work another job, like, what? They're like, one of the things I noticed is they're doing the working you for 35 hours and not 40 because
yeah,
so they don't have to pay benefits. Like, I don't know, like the impression that I get from this, and the thing that makes me really angry is like, it really feels like how worried they are about being sued. It feels like the fact that that's sort of like the basis of all this, and just like they're behaving as if they've already lost, and they're trying to just sort of like claw and hold on to whatever they have. But it's like if you're fighting from the position of we have already lost, you're just going to keep losing. And it's like, and you know, it's not just that, but it's like, okay, like if they were just doing that, but then, you know, like not passing, like not literally forcing everyone else who's working with them to also be in the same sort of defeatism, like it would be different. But it's like no, they're then inflicting that on you, and it's just infuriating.
Yeah, I think this also, to segue to something that actually had happened to me today, as part of being in a call center for an abortion provider, is that I think this instills like a sense of fear for providers as well, for their own personal safety. It just makes it feel bigger because you have all these other people. It'd be like, well, it's like, these are all these things that could happen to you. This is what might happen to you. And I think that it makes providers have to evaluate, you know, their own risks to what they do. And if you are somebody with not as strong values for this work, like not as strong of an opinion towards this work, it causes you to just neglect patients. Because I had an incident that happened today where we had somebody call from a different state where abortion is not legal. And they had their best friend in the car with them. And they were like, my friend is like actively hemorrhaging. She's been like bleeding for days. Do you have like an emergency appointment? Like we can drive up to PA. Like, what do I do? She's been to her doctor 3 different times and they refuse to treat her because the pregnancy is like viable. And in my brain, I'm just shaking because I'm like, this is your job. Like your first thing as a doctor is to make sure that your patient doesn't die, and they might die. And I'm not a doctor. And so I was like, if your friend is losing so much blood that you are worried for her safety, I know on the phone they were talking about how she felt like she was like getting dizzy and like losing a ridiculous amount of blood. And I was like, I strongly suggest that you go to a hospital where abortion is legal, since you're planning on, coming up for an abortion anyway. Because in that case, they would have to treat you no matter what. And if, it's going to result in an abortion, then at the very least you're protected because you're here, you're cross state lines. And I'm like, because any hospital has to treat you for something that serious. And it's scary to think that there are definitely other providers and other like places where this kind of thing is also happening. And I just worry that, what if I was 10 minutes late? What if I was 2 minutes late? What if I was 30 seconds late? What if I told her to wait? Like some places kind of have to, or I told her that I couldn't help her. Like some places kind of have to with these laws. I don't think that I could live with the guilt of that. Yeah. It's just another added trauma to the day.
And I feel like a lot of people said, and like these people suck, but a lot of people were saying that like stuff like this wouldn't happen. I know for a fact that I had I'm very vocal about abortion access in my work. And I've had people tell me like, people won't be hemorrhaging and driving across state lines. And I'm like, absolutely, they will be. Absolutely. And this was like a month ago. And then, well, more than a month ago, time goes fast, but like, this was like prior to Dobbs, I should say. But, and it's just when they were telling me like, I don't believe you. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't believe me? This is the most believable thing. And then to have had people say that it wouldn't happen and to like call me a liar and like a drama queen. And then now to like, I mean, I didn't get a call like that, but like to hear like my coworker and then just like hearing it happen elsewhere. Cause like, we have comrades and union siblings in Ohio with other unions, and they've talked about it happening. And just so hearing my peers talking about it and just knowing like we knew this would happen. And it feels like we just like walked right into it with no plan. There's still no plan. People are still in cars, drive across state lines while actively hemorrhaging. And I don't know what will be done other than us workers really stepping up and hopefully the community then supporting us. Because we can't do it without community support. Like Elizabeth was saying before, oh, and when Elizabeth was actually talking before about the food that we've been getting from the community. And this also made me think of what it looks like to turn up for workers in general, because, we're all workers here. And like, we know what it feels like where you're too busy to stop and eat and you're just going through your day and you're running on fumes and you're exhausted. But the fact that our community was like has been feeding us and like turning up for us, we're to the point where like I was having good, healthy food consistently from day to day. I
haven't eaten that well since then or before
and then
that.
It really got me wondering, like, this is what it's like when you have well-fed workers and that are cared for. So, if the only people answering the call for these people who need healthcare are us, we're exhausted. we don't have time to go out and get food, especially since we got people following us down the street and whatever, while we go get a hot dog, trying to bother us. But then to have like the community bringing us food and then being well fed, it was just like, oh my God, what if all workers were well fed and all communities turned up for their workers? Wouldn't that be so nice? And it got me thinking like, wow, this is like a really positive thing that is not really talked about. Like, I mean, we talk about feeding people, but like, what if workers were well fed? Like, I don't know, like healthcare workers. It's been really nice. And I love our community. I love our city. I love the organizations that have been organizing it. We're incredibly grateful.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They're so good to us. I know that for those couple of weeks where we had food in our break room, I think we worked a lot better. Everybody was in like much better moods.
Didn't get shaky hands,
Yeah, we were all like really excited to like see each other and talk to each other and talk about our days, just over like actually good coffee.
And it was just a huge morale boost to have the community supporting the workers. And then now we have the community coming to our union rally saying, we support you. We want you to get paid more. We want you to have better staff. And that is just like, so necessary right now, because we need the community. We need everyone.
What else can listeners who are like want to help but are not in the industry do to support you all? Well, I guess on two levels. Like, one is like like what can they do sort of in general in their communities, and then two, specifically to help y'all with your fight with the hospital or not hospital,
the clinic. Yeah, we're just a little clinic.
Yeah,
we're just a tiny little guy. I know that for us specifically, I think do what you do best. If you are a person who likes to make art, we love seeing your drawings. We love seeing like your handwritten notes. If you're a person who makes a really good cup of coffee, or if you're a cafe who just wants to like bring us coffee, we love coffee. If you're a bakery that wants to donate like donuts or, cheesecakes, we will happily eat them. If you
happily.
Yeah. If you want to like send us a Bluetooth speaker so we can like listen to music during the day, whatever you do best is what we would love, as long as it comes from like comes from your heart. Like, we love weighted blankets and fluffy things and snacks and just all of those things that come like from the heart make us feel like it's worth it, at least from the community. And things also that we don't have to think about, because as beautiful as make your own taco kits are, we still have to have time to make our own tacos.
Assemble the taco.
Yeah. So if there's anything that you could just like throw at us and it's already like put together, like assembled, has very little thought, like a zombie or a toddler or a burnt out abortion worker can, put two and two together, we'd love those too.
And you could also follow our union. And there's actually a bunch of abortion care worker unions. We're not the only one. We are many. We are Legion. So you could really follow any of us and just boost what we need, because right now the PPFA union, like New York City, San Francisco, is needing a lot of boosting with what they're doing. Guttmacher union needs a lot of love and support. But our union, UE Local 696, our social media is at PPWP Union.
Not to self-promote, but if you go on there are videos of our rally, and I made a uterus-shaped piñata. If anyone wants to see us bust it open,
it's pretty cool.
We busted open a uterus-shaped piñata at our rally, and as we brought up a union family child, because it was the son of a local union member. We brought him up and we helped him smash the piñata, the uterus piñata. And as he was swinging, it was like, this is what we think about low wages. This is what we think about SCOTUS. This is what we think about understaffing. And then candy just like burst out of it. It was like a normal birth, where glitter and candy pop out. Very realistic. Actually, abortions too. People don't know this, but glitter always comes out during an abortion.
Can confirm.
There's gonna be like 3 people who actually believe you. And they're gonna like tell their friend this, and their friend's gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "No, I heard it on a podcast." And we're like,
the cervix sprays glitter when you touch it.
Dilating the cervix is really just opening it up so that it can have glitter come out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess. Well, okay, so logistics wise, yeah, if you send me links, we will put them in the episode description.
Sweet.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess, do you two have anything else that you want to say?
I don't think so, other than like, thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course.
This is super fun. We had a great time.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it was good. I love talking about abortion. Oh yeah. Oh my God, me and Elizabeth on the phone just gabbing away, and we'll like be on a call 20 minutes talking to like someone who needs help, and then we'll like get off, and then we'll be gabbing about whatever for like 10 minutes, and
mostly TikToks.
But yeah, no, it's so important that we can be platformed as like abortion care workers, as union members, as people working in a stigmatized field during a crisis. It means so much, and it's meant a lot to me to see how many abortion episodes this podcast has. Like, you're really covering everything.
Yeah, I was looking them up, and I was like, it's every angle of abortion care, and I love it.
We love to see it.
My knowledge too, and
we love to see it. You're going to run out of topics though eventually, but you really should have an episode about the cervix glitter.
Yeah.
So this will be our our April Fool's episode is actually booked. It could be the second April Fool's episode.
More people need to know about this phenomenon.
All right. This has been It Could Happen Here. You can find us in the places where you know where to find us, because we say this at the end of every episode. Yeah. Thank you to you again.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, it's Emily Simpson and Shane Simpson from the Legally Brunette podcast.
Each week, we're bringing you true crime through a legal lens.
Whether you want all the facts on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, or you still need to wrap your head around the Diddy verdict, we're breaking it all down step by step.
And we're not just lawyers, we're also husband and wife. It makes for some pretty entertaining episodes.
Listen to Legally Brunette on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong with a podcast called The Red Weather.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to everybody.
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'm going back to my hometown to uncover the truth.
You can now binge all episodes of The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever feel like you're being chased by the marriage police? Welcome to Boys and Girls, the podcast where dating isn't dating. Arranged marriage is basically a reality show, except the contestants are strangers and your entire family is judging. You're sipping coffee with one maybe, grabbing dinner with another, and praying your karmic Ken or Barbie appears before your shelf life runs out. Trust me, I've been through this ancient and unshakable tradition. I jumped in hoping to find love the right way, and instead I found chaos, cringe, and comedy. And now I'm looking for healing. Boys and Girls dives into every twist and turn of the arranged marriage carousel. The meet awkward, the near misses, the heartbreak, and let's not forget all the jokes. Listen to Boys and Girls on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know Roald Dahl, the writer who thought up Willy Wonka, Matilda, and the BFG. But did you know he was also a spy?
Was this before he wrote his stories? It must have been.
Our new podcast series, The Secret World of Roald Dahl, is a wild journey through the hidden chapters of his extraordinary, controversial life.
His job was literally to seduce the wives of powerful Americans.
What?
And he was really good at it.
You probably won't believe it either.
Okay, I don't think that's true.
I'm telling you, the guy was a spy.
Did you know Dahl got cozy with the Roosevelts, played poker with Harry Truman, and had a long affair with a congresswoman? And then he took his talents to Hollywood, where he worked alongside Walt Disney and Alfred Hitchcock before writing a hit James Bond film. How did this secret agent wind up as the most successful children's author ever? And what darkness from his covert past seeped into the stories we read as kids? The true story is stranger than anything he ever wrote. Listen to The Secret World of Roald Dahl on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It Could Happen Here is a podcast. Sometimes it's about good stuff and ways people can fix things. Sometimes it's about frightening stuff, like today. Today's a scary episode. Joining me to scare everybody is Professor Calvin Norman. Calvin, how are you doing today?
Oh, Robert, I do well some days, but most days not. I work on climate change, invasive species, forest health issues, and chronic waste disease. So,
are there problems with those things? Okay.
Well, actually, last time we talked about climate change. Solve that, so that we're good there. That's all been solved. It turned out.
We locked that down, right? Yeah. We got the eels fed. That was the problem.
Oh yeah. There's like a car company that's electric now. We're good. Yeah.
We're nailing it. So we had you on the show once before to talk about how the forest is bad.
Still bad.
Still bad. Still a lot of problems in the forest, as the people who are watching their forests burn can probably say. Although there's other problems than that, as we talk about in your episode. You sent me an email a while back. It took a bit for me to get my shit together to have you back on, but it was a frightening email about a disease sweeping through the country that could have massive effects on the lives of everybody listening to this. And it's not one of the diseases that you're all thinking about. I know there's a couple things that meet that decision. There's a couple of different diseases running unchecked throughout the United States at the moment and the world. We are not talking about either of the ones that are big in the news right now. We're going to talk about chronic wasting disease. Calvin, do you want to kind of introduce that concept to the people? Because this was not something I'd heard of it, but I didn't. It was just kind of like, animals have weird diseases, right? Cats get, lymphoma or whatever. I never thought about it much as a thing that was a problem, other than a problem for some deer. But it is quite an issue.
Yeah. It's if it stays in deer, I will be happy. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna actually do a little throwback to the past here. Watch out, everyone. Hold on. So we're gonna go back to the 90s.
Ooh! All right. One sec. I'm gonna get my shoulder pads on. I'm gonna get my X-Files poster stuck up on the wall. I'm gonna vote for a serial sexual abuser. Well, that's every decade. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
So chronic wasting disease is a prion. The reason we're going back to is a prion disease. And the reason we're going back to the 90s is to look at the biggest reason anyone would have heard of a prion disease outside of some brain scientists and stuff. And that's, bovine spongiform encephalopathy, or more commonly known as mad cow disease.
Yeah.
So Robert, I'm not sure how much you are aware of mad cow. It popped up in the U.S. in the mid 2000s, but it killed a bunch of people in England in the 90s.
Yeah, isn't there there's still restrictions on blood donation and stuff if you lived in England at a certain period, right? There's some weird shit like that.
Yeah, you can't donate blood for that. It's a very good reason. We'll go into that in a second. Actually, I was in England not too long ago, and I did not eat beef there because I've read too much about prions to mess around with that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully here in America, we have health food standards, unlike those filthy Brits, but yeah.
Yeah, we had a scare. Canada had a scare, and we'll talk about the repercussions of that later. But so the reason we're going back is we're going to look at the most recent time prions have become mainstream. So what happened there? So let me just unfold this a little bit. That's a joke you'll all understand in 3 minutes, hopefully. So a prion, it's a protein in your brain. Now, I'm not a neurologist. I am a wildlife biologist and forester. So I'm not going to be able to answer every question out there about brains and proteins and stuff like that. But what the prion protein in your brain does is it moves copper around, which is important for cell stuff. I personally think that mankind should have never looked through a microscope, and everything at the cellular level is just heresy. We shouldn't look at it at all.
But, no, I'm completely on board with you there. There's certain things we never should have studied, and anything that involves a microscope is one of them.
Oh yeah, you lost me there. A hand lens, I'm good for. You can like see like small stuff, but microscopes, Audi 5000. Okay, so in your brain, you're moving around copper and stuff, and it's important for like cell stuff. So we're gonna go back to high school biology for most folks. Proteins, building block of life, important. So your protein structure is dictated by the elements in it and how they're like arranged. Like stacked on top of each other. So that's basic. High school biology. But then as you get a little bit further in biology, you find out it's a little bit more complex. So proteins, like, all things in our real world are unfortunately not like in the textbook, and these are 3D. And so they have like shapes and folds. Now, when folded correctly, the prion protein operates normally and just moves copper around. Unfortunately, it doesn't always, sometimes it doesn't fold correctly. And when that happens, it doesn't move copper. And so brains have a little bit of an issue because they don't get copper to the right place.
And this is why all those truck stops sell those copper bands that you can put on your wrist to solve diseases, right? It's to deal with that. Yeah, you just keep that copper band on your wrist, sure.
Solves that problem. Yeah, so what happens when that happens is you get a prion disease. There are some that evolve that just like, they don't evolve because they're not living.
Yeah.
They just pop up in nature. So like bovine spongiform encephalopathy, mad cow.
Yeah.
We referenced that a little bit earlier. Talk about that in a second. Scrapie, feline spongiform encephalopathy, which comes from cats that ate meat that was infected with mad cow. And then there's Kuru. I think
Kuru.
With that one.
That's the one cannibals get, right? Like this is famously why cannibals, quote unquote, go crazy. Actually, a lot of cannibals were well aware that you don't eat meat from certain areas, but it is a thing. If you're going to eat people, be really careful about the spine.
Don't eat brains and spines. Yeah, that's
exactly.
Right. Yeah. There's and in humans, it's called the spongiform encephalopathy. I'm going to explain the big word in 1 second. It's called Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease. It was figured out by two Germans. Really neat stuff.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite disease names because you just know you're in for some like horrifying shit when you see that spelled out. You're like, well, that's got to be something bad.
Yeah, well, and luckily, like, for two German guys, like, alive in the 30s, did good stuff. Like, they
two of the four German doctors who weren't Nazis in that period,
it seems like one of them died right before things, like, things went south there, and then one of them did
great
good
timing.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I've been throwing around this word spongiform encephalopathy. And then like, I changed like the, bovine, feline, whatever. So a spongiform means something looks like a sponge, and an encephalopathy means brain. So your brain turns into a sponge, and that's because you're not getting copper, and so cells are falling apart, and your brain just doesn't work, to be real simple. It's kind of like Alzheimer's. That's how it like presents in humans, which is why it's really hard to figure out. And then when you want to determine that something has spongiform encephalopathy, you got to cut the brain open and look at it under a microscope.
Hell yeah, you do.
And as you can imagine, that doesn't usually happen in people. You don't usually cut their brains open. And also in a lot of animals, you don't usually cut their brain open and look at them under a microscope.
Well, it's bad for them, right? Like, that's not,
Yeah, it's always lethal. Always a lethal sample. So that's the basics of like what a prion disease is. And then when we saw it in England, what had happened was got it into cows. Cows got it from eating other cows that were fed back to them, and then it got into humans because we ate. Well, the Brits in the 30s, in the 90s, ate cows that were infected with bovine spongiform encephalopathy, and you had to eat a good amount of it for it to build up in your brain.
Right.
So, and what I mean by that is,
but we're Americans,
right? So not a problem for Americans,
yeah.
Right. I just want to kind of like lay a foundation so we all understand what's going
on.
And so what I mean by buildup in your brain is like, you get like 1-2 proteins in there, you're fine. It's okay. Proteins misfold all the time. It takes, brains are big, especially in humans, so it takes a while for this to become a problem. But what happens is over time is once you build up enough, you get exposed to enough prions that are misfolded, like the prions in the brain start misfolding, and then slowly your brain just stops functioning correctly.
Yeah.
It's like a chain, like a slow chain reaction. So that's the basics of prion diseases and spongiform encephalopathies. Now, we're talking about chronic wasting disease, which can be easily described as the deer equivalent of mad cow disease. And like when you see a lot of stuff about it, people it's like called like zombie deer because like deer get weird when they are like dying from chronic wasting disease. Like the name chronic wasting disease comes from because they like wasting away. They're like drooling and also drinking a lot. They act weird. They look dumb. They just do weird stuff. And so people call it zombie like deer, but they're not. They're just infected with a prion disease and their brain is falling apart. It's like a person getting Alzheimer's. Like, you know, they do weird stuff. My grandma has Alzheimer's. It's terrible. Awful. Don't get it.
My grandma had the same thing that Robin Williams got, the Lewy body dementia, and it's pretty much the same thing, right? Like you can just see somebody kind of falling apart piece by piece. But that probably does make the deer easier to hunt.
Yes, and it also makes it really easy to identify when it's in its advanced stages in deer. So we got kind of an understanding about it, but like, you know, why do we care? We are people. We are not deer, right? Robert, are you a deer?
Not right now. I mean, I have been to a furry convention, but I didn't commit. So
we all got our things. Well, so I hunt deer. Robert, I think you hunt. I don't know.
I'm getting ready for hunting season as we speak.
Yeah. So lots of people hunt deer and they eat deer, which is cool and it's fine and it's important to do in you know certain ecosystems. I mean, in most of the U.S., like deer have been hunted by various humans for as long as people have been here.
Yeah.
So it's a natural thing to do.
Yeah, it's very normal for people to hunt deer, and it's very normal. And also, there are areas where we killed everything else that hunts deer.
Yeah.
So there's anyway, whatever. We don't need to defend deer hunting here.
I've done hours of webinars on the importance of deer management. It's a real fun subject to go into. But we don't care about that. We're talking about chronic wasting disease, fun stuff. So we care about that. We care about chronic wasting disease because it impacts all members of the cervid family or deer. So that's elk, moose. I just learned the Europeans call moose European elk. Wild.
Arrogant.
Ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Look at a moose, look at an elk. Super different.
Wildly different animals. Like, they're both very big, but they're also different sizes. It's like the difference between like an armored car and a tank. A fucking moose is like, it's basically an elephant in terms of its footprint. Like,
they're so cool to see.
They're
but so
enormous. Yeah.
Yeah, the impact it can get in all cervids that we know of. It's and people like to see cervids. They like to hunt cervids. We've liked to do it, in different countries. For
they're delicious. They have the best meat. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So much better than fucking beef. So much better than pork, in my opinion. Like, I fucking love venison.
Oh yeah. Moose.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had moose. I've had it once.
Oh, it's delicious. Yeah, moose and elk, wonderful meats. That's actually a big thing Joe Rogan and I talk about when we're hanging out is elk meat. He's a big elk meat guy.
That's good. I've never hunted an elk. I've put in for the lottery every year, but it's hard to get elk tags in Pennsylvania. I know it's a real surprise.
Yeah, you know what? I'll go ahead and reach out now. It's easy to get the tags here, but it is hard unless you have a friend with land that elks are on to actually hunt them as much as yeah. Anyway, if you've got land in Oregon and you want me to hunt elk on it, hit us up.
Yeah. So as we can see, there's a clear demand for cervids and cervid products, and so in like the 50s and 60s, people started. They're like, well, sometimes you're not always good at hunting, and not everyone wants to hunt, so they started trying to domesticate and farm them.
Right.
Cervids famously like running away. I've seen a lot of deer tails. Robert, you hunt? I'm sure you have.
Yeah. And a lot of like tracks that you can tell and like with shit or something near them that like, oh man, I fucking missed that son of a bitch by like 30 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you drive around, you'll see just they're like, oh, car, I'm out at 5,000. They don't need to be here. Sometimes they go across the road and you hit them. That's a different story.
Mm-hmm. Then you get your free meat in some states.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's bruised to heck, but that is how I get to eat some moose. Someone hit it with a car.
Hell yeah.
So they don't like being in captivity at all. Not a fan. And so they were very stressed in captivity. And then like in the 60s in Colorado, on the University of Colorado, on their deer farm, they noticed like the deer were getting skinny and weird, and that's where chronic wasting disease was discovered.
Because we tried to fucking farm an animal that's not okay. Awesome. Love it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. There are some folks who think that it's a natural thing, but doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. No reports of it being around from before the 60s. And as we laid out, lots of people ate a lot of deer and saw a lot of deer before the 60s. So probably came from farming cervids. So then since then, there's deer farming is not really regulated, and also deer are not really easy to keep in captivity. They like to jump, and like when fences blow down, and so they'll get out of captivity. And like also other deer, they like come up to captive deer, and they're like, "Yo, what's up with you though? You're in a cage, huh?" And so you can actually see them. They like interact through the fence, and that's probably how it got out of containment, is through interactions and cervids being spread around the country. And so now chronic wasting disease is found in 30 states, I think 4 Canadian provinces, Scandinavia, and Korea. So I think it's 4 or 5 countries. So it's out there. It's out there. And it's infecting cervid populations across the U.S. and across Canada, and the world. It's real bad. It's real bad. So
Yeah,
if you're
that seems like a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a deer, what happens is you either interact with to pick up chronic wasting disease. We'll go through the deer the progression in deer. To pick it up, you either interact with a deer that has chronic wasting disease. So you go up and smell them, you lick them a little bit. Deer groom each other. They animals.
Yeah.
You eat a plant that another deer pooped on. Now, it doesn't have to have pooped on that plant. So like this is a deer that's infected with chronic wasting disease, can poop in the soil, and the plant will pick up the prion from the soil.
Awesome.
And then another deer can come in.
It can just spread. Yeah. Cool. That's some real scary shit. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can also pick it up from water, but it spreading in water is really tough. So those are your main vectors: is deer to deer and environment to deer. And that's why it's pretty tough to control once it gets into a state, because to destroy it, you have to dig up the soil and you have to burn it at 1,000 degrees for an hour, or you have to expose it to bleach for an hour to destroy the prion, because it's not a living thing; it's a protein.
Yeah, I mean, and there are a couple of towns that I would be okay doing that too, but on a nationwide scale, that seems difficult to pull off.
Yeah, I can think of a state that starts with an O and an H that I wouldn't mind losing. If we just were like, we'll
let's
take
just try it. Why not give it a shot, right?
Yeah, it's just Ohio. Come on, it's not a real state. So in deer, we're gonna stay just in the deer world. We're not gonna get scary yet. So in deer, this slowly builds up throughout the population, and you get worst case scenarios like in southwestern Wisconsin, where like 50 to 75% of the deer bucks harvested a year are positive for chronic wasting disease. And because it's an always fatal, brain disease, you're looking at population collapse and extinction.
Great.
Yeah, because it remains in the soil too. Like, it's around for at least 2, probably more years. But the studies we've done are only 2 years, because these are not fun things to study.
Yeah,
people have died studying these diseases from prions. Like when they've done work on like BSE, a lab tech actually pricked herself with the tool and got CJD and died from it. So
oh my god,
they're not fun to study. Really, this is like we're talking like Martian suit style study stuff. It's not fun.
Cool. So like the stand level shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like, it without, when chronic wasting disease is not addressed in deer populations, like in southeastern or southwestern Wisconsin, you're looking at extinction level stuff, because all of the deer that are out there, or most, 75% of them have chronic wasting disease, or at some point in getting chronic wasting disease, which means that they're putting more and more of it in the environment. And they're more like, if you're an uninfected deer, you're, 3/4 of your buddies are infected. So you're going to get chronic wasting disease and be dead within 2 or 3 years. So you're looking at extinction of all cervids in that area for some amount of time until it comes out of the soil. That's bad.
That is a problem. Yes.
Yeah. As we have established, neither of us are deer. So why do we care?
I mean, outside of like the fact that deer are pretty important to the ecology of local areas, and that collapse is bad. Yeah. Why? What is the what is the risk to human beings beyond that?
Yeah. We put ecology aside all the time.
Right.
This
is the world. We don't really care about that.
Yeah. I deal with what happens when you put ecology aside. So I'm super used to that being done. So the risk is if it jumps into humans. Because all of a sudden you have a disease that's really hard to detect, that can live in the environment, that can be transferred from not just spinal fluid, but like if you eat a lot of infected meat from deer, if you eat some of the organs, you can get it at a high risk. So all of a sudden you have a large portion of the population that could be exposed through direct consumption. But the other thing is prions are really hard to kill. I said they live in soil. They also live on steel surfaces, glass surfaces, every surface that they've tested, trying to kill prions, putting prions on and seeing how long they live there, hang out there. There was some surgical equipment that was infected with a prion, gave someone chronic wasting, not chronic, CJD 3 years after using it on someone who had CJD.
Great.
Yeah. And that's surgical grade stainless steel stuff. So not supposed to hold things, gets cleaned, but not super, not prion level clean, because they didn't know about it at the time. So there's the risk is it could potentially develop into a human, something that impacts humans. Right now it hasn't. We do have 8 different variations of it out there in the landscape. And as more and more deer are exposed to it, what happens? We get more and more variations of it, because that's just what happens in nature.
Yeah. But as we're all becoming familiar with COVID, it keeps changing because nothing has been done to stop it from spreading.
Yeah, and the only thing you can do to stop it is just reduce deer numbers. You can't really eliminate it out of the landscape because it's in the soil.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't test live deer for it. You got to kill them to do it. There are some tests being developed to determine if animals are infected that are faster, but it's still in progress. So that's called RT Quick. It's a protein test that's much faster than current testing, but it's still in progress. So the thing that really scares me is the other thing about that makes chronic wasting disease different from BSE, mad cow disease is mad cow was in cows that were in captive spaces,
right?
And where the cows are.
Yeah, it's a problem, but it's a problem that you can with enough fire and or other tools eradicate.
Yeah, and it didn't seem to be very present in soil, and it was you had to feed dead cows to dead cow or to live cows to get them infected. Chronic wasting disease is a different beast. So the real scary potential here is that it's in soil, so it can get into plants, and we know that plants can transmit chronic wasting disease to other deer. So it could transmit it to other animals, like things that eat plants. For example, you and I eat plants. If you're an American, you eat corn in a couple of different forms. Mm-hmm. Deer love hanging out in cornfields.
Oh yeah.
So there is an exposure vector right there, and it's when you're processing corn into corn syrup, let's say, you take a bunch of corn from a bunch of different places, smush it up, grind it up. You do a bunch of stuff to it on steel surfaces, and you don't heat it to 1,000 degrees for an hour. So all of a sudden, you have a case of soda that could be infected with chronic wasting disease.
Oh, cool.
There's the potential. The big potential damage.
If this shit jumps to people, which it hasn't yet, I want to be really clear about that, so we're not causing too. But if it does, the containment thing is even an order of magnitude beyond fucking COVID shit, right? It's because it's spread through the soil. It gets into the fucking basic ingredients of food, and we simply, the way that we process that stuff isn't set up in a way that will eliminate it right now.
Yeah, and I would tell you really can't on a large scale process anything and make it safe from chronic wasting disease, because you'd have to if you cut up let's go back to assuming it's just in you're handling an infected deer. If you cut that deer up, you use your knife, you got to put it in bleach for an hour, and then you can come back to it. Bleach is really corrosive, so it'll eventually destroy your knife. So there's your end thing there. But you can also do it through your hands, touching it, you can get it. So that's the scary part there. I mean, as you pointed out, and I really totally failed on my part to mention it hasn't jumped to humans.
Yes. We are not saying you are going to get the disease tomorrow. That is not but it also isn't like there's nothing that says it can't jump to humans, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So there have been a number of like 3 or 4. There are 2 studies I know of. There's a third one I've heard about looking at if human-like animals can get chronic wasting disease. So that's macaques, which are a kind of monkey, and when they have been fed chronic, meat infected with chronic wasting disease, and they were exposed to blood. They were fed it. They were exposed to blood, and some of it was just injected right into the back of their brainstem. The monkeys got chronic wasting disease.
That's
so
good.
it looks like it's possible.
Yeah.
And then also hamsters, which are also used as a human stand-in, have also been fed meat infected with chronic wasting disease, and they were able to get it. And they were able to get it from a number of different sources. There are some really fun, and by fun I mean scary, papers out there about all the ways chronic wasting disease moves around and survives. And the studies about using human stand-ins are not always fun to read.
No. And this is definitely one of those things where it's like, what is the other option other than, you have to try it on shit that's very unsettling, but what else are you going to do? This is something you do have to know.
Yeah. And the other problem with prions is detection when it comes to different species, because it presents like Alzheimer's. And so the only way that something got a prion disease is if you cut their head, if you cut its head open, you look at its brain. So in humans, it can take a long time for these symptoms to present. I think if you look it up on Wikipedia, it says the average age detection is 60 years.
Then we're good. Fine.
Yeah. The researchers that I've spoken to say it takes 40 years for enough prions to build up in your brain for it to start to show symptoms. So if it jumps the species barrier, the first time we detect it will probably not be the first time anyone has been infected.
Yeah, it will already have spread quite widely, and then people will. Yeah,
hopefully not, but yeah. So that's the scary part. That's the human side scary part. But we don't always have to get human side scary. Sometimes things work in monkeys and hamsters that don't work in humans. And we've cured cancer hundreds of times in mice, right?
Yeah.
And in humans, it's a lot harder to do because we're not mice, we're not monkeys, we're humans. So it doesn't always work like that. But the other scary part is when it comes to agriculture and the impact on agriculture. So pigs can pick up chronic wasting disease. They're what's called a prion amplifier. So they can pick it up. It hangs out in them just fine. It doesn't kill pigs at all. But they can
Nothing kills pigs but people.
Yeah, it's true. That's the truth right there. That's the truth. Yeah. So if it as people governments become more aware of it and more concerned about it, there's the real possibility of agricultural exports getting hammered on exporting it because other countries are concerned about spreading it. So right now it's pretty hard to it's getting increasingly harder to export live deer as it probably should be.
Yeah.
Probably farming cervids is not a great idea for their health and ours. But also there's the concern about spread. So if chronic wasting disease is crosses from humans to cows, like we've seen, if BSE just pops up in some cows, that might be from chronic wasting disease, and the impact of that is going to be huge. I mean, Canada, they were shut out of the Japanese market for 14 years, Japanese beef market for 14 years following a case of mad cow disease in 2006. They got let back in 2 years ago, and the studies on that was a couple of $1 billion in damage to the Canadian beef market. So and that was BSE, which doesn't transfer via plants. So imagine if the U.S. agricultural export market got shut down for plants, that economic damage is incalculable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the scary part about chronic wasting disease. Those are all the scarinesses. That's what keeps me up at night.
This is frightening and important for people to be aware of because it's a serious threat. Are there things that can be done at the moment? Is there an actionable, even not just not on a what can our audience do, but is there a thing that could potentially be done by states or the federal government, whatever, that would help this? Like, is there actually do we have any fucking idea of like what could be done to make it less likely for the kind of nightmare scenarios that we've alluded to occur here?
Yeah, so the best things we can do are to hunt deer, reduce deer population, so that way you're taking deer out that might be infected, and when you hunt deer in most areas that are infected, you test them for free with your state or various authorities, and so then those carcasses are destroyed. So you can remove disease off the landscape that way, and then by also just hunting deer, you reduce population levels, and so you make the disease loading in the landscape lower and it less likely to spread, both to other deers and then potentially vector to other animals, be exposed to other animals. Excuse me. New York is a great example of this. They had a case of chronic wasting disease pop up, took it out, really, hunted that area hard. I think that they even brought in professionals and did some real serious deer reduction, and they haven't had a case since. So in areas where it pops up, you can just hammer it with, lethal removal of animals, harvesting, whatever, and you can prevent spread. And you can really knock it back. The other thing we got to do, we need to be very serious about, we need to take the captive cervid industry. So I've used the word cervid a couple of times. I never defined it. My apologies. Cervids are members of the deer family. So elk, moose, Sika deer, all those guys, red deer, fallow deer, whatever, bunch of them. We need to make sure that we're very closely regulating that industry because of the potential spread. There was a farmer in Wisconsin that sent like almost 400 different infected deer to like 197 different farms over the course of like 4 years. So, it's regulation is incredibly important. And it's rarely, it's not really enough on most farms. My home state here, we have, if you make less than $10,000 from your cervid farm, you don't have to report it. You don't have to track it or anything. That's a real problem because we are experiencing expanding chronic wasting disease.
Yeah.
So regulation, that's not fun.
Maybe we just shouldn't be farming cervids. Maybe that's bad.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all there.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
Yeah,
from an ethical standpoint too.
Well, there's many. I raise several different. I raise bunnies and chickens and goats, and I help raise sheep for meat. There's plenty of different things that you can raise for meat that are used to it because we've been raising them for meat for like tens of thousands of fucking years. Like the sheep I have are Angoras, which I think go back like 20,000-30,000 years. Like they're meant for it. We have changed them into animals that are supposed to be raised for meat. Don't take new animals and try to farm them like that because it seems like it causes problems.
Yeah, well, there's some really neat work out there about domestication stress, and like domesticated sheep don't care about being domesticated, whereas like they've compared like domesticated sheep to wild sheep. Wild sheep die really quick when you put them in domestication from the stress. But yeah, like you said. Maybe we don't play around with some of these animals and try to force them to do what we humans want them to do. It's okay for animals to just be animals. Nothing wrong with that. So the other thing, there was a large amount of money set aside, and I can't remember which legislative package it was that got defeated a while back, that put money towards chronic wasting disease research. So, legislatures and states can be, legislatures and governments can be taking it seriously and putting money towards it. Right now, there's not a lot of money going towards it because it's like, it's a zombie deer thing. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you could get into agriculture.
This is not just a problem for deer hunters. This could be a real issue for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of like a larger symptomatic thing too. We don't really take environmental problems that seriously.
No.
The
scary thing about this is we don't treat the environmental problems seriously when everyone's saying like, hey, the consequence is that like all of Florida will be uninhabitable, right? Like we don't take that seriously. So when you're saying this is much wonkier, which is definitely a barrier to effective action.
Yeah, I did a legislative testimony about chronic wasting disease a couple of months back. And no one was paying attention. But, it made me feel good. I was doing something. Oh, here's a fun thing about Florida and chronic wasting disease. So Florida, full of invasive species. Yep. Obviously, it has chronic wasting disease. Like, come on, it's Florida. Obviously, they got to pick up a new disease.
Yeah.
You know what else is in Florida?
Huh.
Colonies of macaques. There's like 2 colonies of wild macaques.
I was unaware of that.
Yeah.
Was it because people were ill-advisedly keeping pets?
I think one of them started that way, and I think one of them was like some monkeys that had been like kept for testing or zoo stuff escaped. But there are at least like 2 like colonies of like macaques in Florida, which also has chronic wasting disease. So I don't think they're like near the Everglades. I don't think chronic wasting disease is made that far south in Florida. So there's a fun possibility of the lab experiments done under highly controlled conditions getting performed in the wild setting. We could see if macaques can pick up chronic wasting disease in the wild. There's a fun research project for someone who is able to handle dark sides of things.
Yeah. Thank you, Florida. But more importantly, thank you, Flo Rida, who, and a lot of people are unaware of this, was just a couple of years ago in the Eurovision Song Awards representing San Marino. So, 22nd overall, not bad.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Better than I can do.
It is.
I sing out of tune on a good day.
Yeah. And also, you are not technically a citizen of the Republic of San Marino.
No, but yet they offered me citizenship. I would consider it.
Absolutely. Who wouldn't want to be a citizen of the most serene Republic of San Marino?
Yeah, I've looked at Andorra, so it would be a really. If we're looking at European micronations. I mean, if Andorra came knocking versus San Marino, obviously San Marino's getting kicked to the curb. I love that like dual like government between the president of France and like the Pope of, or not the bishop.
Yeah.
It's like a bishop of like somewhere in Italy.
Yeah, it's very funny. You gotta love those weird little micro republics.
Oh, huge fan.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, this has been great.
Yeah.
I'm glad this is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool and fun. Yeah. I'm not usually fun to hang out with when I talk about work stuff.
Yeah. I know, but it's again, people need to be aware of this. Like, this is one of those, just in the same way that like people were talking about for years prior to COVID. Hey, we actually really need to be aware, like a coronavirus could break out and it'll spread really quickly due to the way that global travel and transit and stuff works, and it'll be almost impossible to control. We should build structures into our societies to make it easier for us to deal with a coronavirus, which we didn't do, but maybe we'll do it this time.
Yeah, well, what makes that really fun, I'm gonna build off you for a second. You've fallen into my trap here. Same people who were writing about like MERS and predicted, I can't remember which came first, MERS or SARS. I can't remember which one. The same people who predicted that, and then who are also predicting COVID, are also talking about chronic wasting disease. So it's like, I really hope you don't get to be right on this one.
Yeah.
Daryl, I just want you to lose one of these times here, bud. You're a nice guy, real smart guy, but can you be wrong occasionally just for like, old time's sake? Just be nice to me.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Yep. That's been a fun episode. Everybody have a good time. Thank you, Calvin. Do you have anything you want to like plug before we roll out here?
Yeah, I would like to plug Trees. Trees is real neat. Try that.
We are supported by Trees. Not the plant, but a club in Dallas that I took ecstasy at once. That's our primary sponsor.
I'm physically supported by Trees. My computer is on wood, so.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
There's that. Also
good.
Yeah. Trees, like to plug also getting outside. That's good for you. Do that occasionally.
Absolutely get outside for sure.
Yeah. Tweets from birds. I don't do the Twitters.
Not from Twitter. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Those are things that I'd like to plug.
Yeah, replacing the tweets from Twitter that you encounter with tweets from birds is probably among the best things you can do for your mental health. Unless it's this one bird that lived outside of my apartment in Los Angeles. But anyway. Well, Calvin, thank you for coming on. I appreciate your expertise, even though it's always deeply unsettling. That's gonna do it for all of us here today. It could happen here, by which I mean you and me.
Hey everyone, it's Emily Simpson and Shane Simpson from the Legally Brunette podcast.
Each week, we're bringing you true crime through a legal lens.
Whether you want all the facts on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie or you still need to wrap your head around the Diddy verdict, we're breaking it all down step by step.
And we're not just lawyers, we're also husband and wife. It makes for some pretty entertaining episodes.
Listen to Legally Brunette on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong with a podcast called The Red Weather.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to everybody.
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'm going back to my hometown to uncover the truth.
You can now binge all episodes of The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever feel like you're being chased by the marriage police? Welcome to Boys and Girls, the podcast where dating isn't dating. Arranged marriage is basically a reality show, except the contestants are strangers and your entire family is judging. You're sipping coffee with one maybe, grabbing dinner with another, and praying your karmic Ken or Barbie appears before your shelf life runs out. Trust me, I've been through this ancient and unshakable tradition. I jumped in hoping to find love the right way, and instead I found chaos, cringe, and comedy. And now I'm looking for healing. Boys and Girls dives into every twist and turn of the arranged marriage carousel. The meet awkward, the near misses, the heartbreak, and let's not forget all the jokes. Listen to Boys and Girls on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know Roald Dahl, the writer who thought up Willy Wonka, Matilda, and the BFG. But did you know he was also a spy?
Was this before he wrote his stories? It must have been.
Our new podcast series, The Secret World of Roald Dahl, is a wild journey through the hidden chapters of his extraordinary, controversial life.
His job was literally to seduce the wives of powerful Americans.
What?
And he was really good at it.
You probably won't believe it either.
Okay, I don't think that's true.
I'm telling you, the guy was a spy.
Did you know Dahl got cozy with the Roosevelts, played poker with Harry Truman, and had a long affair with a congresswoman? And then he took his talents to Hollywood, where he worked alongside Walt Disney and Alfred Hitchcock before writing a hit James Bond film. How did this secret agent wind up as the most successful children's author ever? And what darkness from his covert past seeped into the stories we read as kids? The true story is stranger than anything he ever wrote. Listen to The Secret World of Roald Dahl on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh boy, it is behind the It Happened could here. I'm Evans, Robert, podcast, song. Hello. Who else is on the call? What are we doing? Where are we?
It's me. It's Christopher Wong. I'm gonna talk a lot this episode. There's also other people here.
You are. Now, before we get into that, I should note that we're all just looking at the latest episode of Podcast Magazine, which of course we all read regularly. That's
I do
got
like
a list.
I do like that they describe you as they describe you in a few funny ways, actually.
Yes, they do. It's a list of the most powerful people in podcasting. It's of
And
course
on
got
pa-
me, obviously. Trevor
page
Noah,
40
Joe Rogan, all the greats.
on page 47, we have Robert Evans, and they do say that he has also undertaken an ambitious daily series called It Could Happen Here that takes on some of the weightiest issues and problems facing policymakers around the world.
I will say this. If you are a policymaker and you have ever taken a policy suggestion from us, you have a legal obligation to light your own office on fire with a Molotov.
I do like that Robert Evans is right above
don't listen to Chris. Do it, policymakers.
I do like that Robert Evans is right above the serial creators, so that's good.
That is nice. That is. I'm above Trevor Noah. I mean, I literally don't think it's like it listed because there is no way in the list Ben Shapiro is above Joe Rogan, and that's just not accurate to the way the industry functions. But It's a very
Well,
silly list anyway.
It's been fun reading through our latest issue of our favorite podcast magazine.
Podcast magazine, of course.
Made by Podcast News Daily, where you can get all your news about podcasts.
A thing that I totally knew about. I've known about this clearly for longer than 15 minutes. Actually, that's not true. I've known about it for longer than 8 minutes, maybe 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing photo of Robert. He looks like
happy
the
to
Giga
get.
Chad meme.
I was happy to get in some fine reading today. So anyway, what's our episode actually about?
That's a great question.
It's a podcast power rating episode.
Yeah. We're I don't even have anywhere to go with that. No, the thing the episode is actually about is heat waves, and very specifically a heat wave in China that has been going on for this is day 7. As we're recording, this is day 72, I think. But by the time this goes out, it will probably be like day 74. And this is an incomparable heat wave. I'm just going to read this from Axios. The extreme heat and drought that has been roasting a vast swath of southern China for at least 70 days straight has no parallel in modern record-keeping in China or anywhere else around the world for that matter. Now, okay, so that sounds bad, right? But it's actually worse than that because, okay, so if you were to read that, you might believe that this heat wave is just affecting southern China, and that's like not true. It's also affecting northern China. It is affecting like most of China.
It's like affecting almost like most people alive.
Like it is affecting. It is 900 million people.
Now,
which is like
Chris. Quick question: is that a lot?
So if you rank all the countries in the world, right? The people affected by this heat wave would be the third largest country in the world, only behind China and India.
Okay.
So
that's several people's.
It's fun.
Is it more people than the British people who have been logging on to post about it being like 85 degrees and them dying?
Like,
I do love one of the things that's keeping me alive during this ugly summer is like all of the photos of British people just getting as red as possible because they think that tanning means burning 80% of the surface of your body.
You don't. It's hard for me to explain how difficult it was for me to comprehend that in California they won't serve you if you have your shirt off, because it is a national tradition in Britain to take off your shirt and get as much sunburn as possible in a few days.
Or if you're getting into a fist fight as well.
I
have witnessed a number of folks pull their shirts off in fights in London.
Yep. It's part of our natural heritage and patrimony.
It's a beautiful country, but please continue, Chris.
Yeah, okay, so to get a sense of like the stakes of this, right? So, okay, and like just the sheer scale of this, because 900 million people is an amount of people that is incomprehensible.
Yeah,
like,
you can't.
That's a number that's too large. So, okay, Sichuan province, right? This is one province that is being affected by this. This province has 83 million people in it. This is the entire combined population of California, Texas, Indiana, and New York City. Here's from France 24 about what's happening here. Since July this year, the province has faced the most extreme high temperatures, the lowest rainfall in the corresponding period in history, and the highest power load in history, local authorities said. So it is hotter than it has ever been. It is drier than it has ever been, except, and this is the fun part, this is similar to what's been happening in Texas, and I think, Texas is probably the best example of this. So it's really, really, really unbelievably dry, except for when there's giant flash floods, and they've killed like 22 people already, have died from the flash floods, a different province, but yeah, it is unbelievably bleak. One of the big things that's happening is that the Yangtze River is like the lowest anyone has ever seen it. Who's like anyone alive has ever seen it. It's the lowest we have recorded measurements of, because like, and this is everything that's happening here. Like there is no record of it ever being this bad. And this is a real problem because, particularly in Sichuan, because 80% of this province's power is drawn from hydroelectric. And it turns out it's really bad if the rivers that you are relying on for your hydroelectric power are basically drying up. And like there's pictures of like you can go find pictures of this. Like there are pictures of the Yangtze that like it looks like a riverbed on Mars. Like, it is just completely dry. Like, it's like dry, cragged stuff. It's really
yeah,
good.
I mean, again, this is just to kind of bring out how worldwide this problem is. We're seeing pieces of this everywhere else, right? Like Texas, which is also in a horrible drought, has been having flash floods that have been disastrous recently, because when it's been super dry for a while and you have these heavy rains, it's a huge fucking problem. And you've got riverbeds drying up all across the Southwest, and things like Lake Mead getting low enough that hydroelectric power isn't going to be reliable in a huge chunk of it. Like the again, because it's important not to distract from like what's happening in China, but because it's important, like this is everybody. This is everybody all the time is threatened by this. Yes, in India, all over. Yeah.
Yeah, and okay, so this heat wave in China, like, there's been very, very little English coverage of it. And the thing that everyone focuses on is the fact that, like, the power outages, well, the reduced ability to generate power, and the fact that everyone has to turn on their air conditions to not, like, literally die is, it's wreaking havoc on China's sort of productive capacity. So Sichuan has, like, there's an enormous, like, industrial base there that, produces stuff from everything from, like, Tesla to Apple. And this is what the sort of the Anglophone media cares about, right? Like, almost everything written about the heat wave is about its effect on, like, supply chain disruption to, like, semiconductor production and, like, batteries for electronics and so on and so forth. And I do not give a shit about this. And the reason I don't give a shit about this is because the actual human impact of this is just sort of unfathomable. And the media outlets who are talking about it, like, don't seem to be paying attention to it at all. So while I was originally when I was originally writing part of this episode, I went and, like, looked back at weather data for Shanghai. And so, when I was writing this on August 23rd, that day it was 103 in Shanghai. Like 2 weeks before that, it was 111. And I found out that from July 30th to August 20th, the high temperature, like the daily high temperature, like, did not go below 100. On the 21st, it finally rained, and that dropped the temperature to merely 94. I think either today or tomorrow, I think it will go below 90.
This is at night as well, or
no? This is the temperature of the day, but the temperatures in the night aren't going below, like, 70 either. Then a lot of times are in the 80s or 90s, and
then the temperature at night does, just for people who are not aware of, like, heat, one of the things that's most important for, like, the survivability of a heat wave is whether or not it gets cool at night, because you can survive pretty hot temperatures during the day if you're able to cool your body down at night. It's one of the saving graces the Pacific Northwest had during its heat waves. But
yeah, and this is a real, like, so Chongqing, which is an enormous city in China, it has 9 million people, like, regularly in the city. The city is also the municipal, like, government. There's a whole sort of complicated thing there, but, like, the municipality of Chongqing has 32 million people in it. They had a night a couple of weeks ago that was 94.8 degrees. And which is, again, like, that is a night that is significantly hotter than the average summer day. And, I mean, like, I want to go back to Shanghai for just, like, a second, because, like, Shanghai, I looked this up. Shanghai has not had a day where the high has been below 89 degrees for 2 consecutive days since mid-June. It has been over 90 degrees every single day, like, without 2 days back to back. It wasn't that hot since mid-June. And, so, like, the effect, this is having enormous effects. One of the big ones, so the most noticeable ones, is, like, basically, like, any excess power usage that a city can have is just getting shut off. There's been a lot of stuff where, like, businesses aren't allowed to open before, like, 4 p.m. because it's literally just too hot, and you can't deal with the electricity load. And yeah, like, and, the other problem here, again, is, like, it's not cooling off at night. And if it's not cooling off at night, yeah, like, this is the thing that kills people. And so, one of the other things I want to talk about this is just, like, looking at what this looks like on, like, a very, very granular individual level, because this stuff also just sort of gets ignored. There was a really horrible story in Sixth Tone, which is, like, it's hard to describe them. So Sixth Tone is a state media outlet, but they're, like, I don't know. I guess you consider them, like, they're like the left-wing state media outlet. which means that like they have somewhat more like editorial independence than like something like China Daily or like a lot of the other state-run things, and they criticize the government a lot more than most of the sort of state-run outlets. And they did this story about a migrant worker who was working at a freight depot about like this depot is about like 2.5 hours outside of Shanghai, and okay, so he's working, and it is unbelievably hot. I think the last day that he's working here, it's 104 degrees, and that night it only cooled off to 84. Here's from Sixth Tone about sort of just the conditions that people are working in here. On the hottest days, the temperature inside the carriages is at least 50 degrees Celsius, which is 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Says Yu Yidong, a worker from Jiangxi, another inland province. It feels like you're on fire standing here around noon. His employer, an outsourcing agency, hands out heat stroke prevention drugs, which he takes twice a day. At the freight depot, managers sit in air-conditioned rooms, but workers like him rest under trees. The office is not for us, Yu says. Now, okay, in theory, under Chinese law, if it hits 104 degrees, outdoor work is supposed to immediately stop, and you're supposed to move everyone indoors and like give them water and stuff, because it turns out if you're working like a hard manual labor job outside in 104, you might die. But you're also supposed to get paid heat breaks. And as anyone who is familiar with, for example, how American farm labor works, what is about to happen next. It turns out that okay, so you can take a break, but your employers won't pay you for it because like they don't like no, who's gonna actually force them to do it. Zhang, who's the worker the story is about, is extremely poor. His family is poor. He's trying to support a family like back home because again he's a migrant worker, and he can't afford to take a break on his shift so he doesn't die. And so he literally collapses on the job and then gets back up and finishes his work. And he tries to cool down by like laying in his tiny unair conditioned apartments with like an electric fan pointed at his head. And he died on a bed that was held up by 2 broken cinder blocks, making maybe $4 an hour.
Oof.
Yeah. And
worker's paradise.
Yeah, and I mean the thing about this, right, is so in theory he's working for a state-owned company, right? But as we talked about like a little bit in the sort of quote earlier, he's not actually working for the state-owned firm. What he's working for is one of these like labor agencies, which are these like sort of contracting things that allow you to actually get a job. But what happens is that the state-owned firms like outsource labor to these contracting firms. And the contracting firms just like pick people up and bring them to the site. But this means he doesn't have a contract. And the problem is if you don't have a contract, right, you can't get any government benefits. You can't get insurance. And it turns out this matters because, China has like a payout, right, that they're supposed to pay to families when, if someone dies in the job. But, it's almost impossible to collect, especially if you don't have a contract. It is almost impossible to get this thing. And this is how like most of the Chinese economy works. The Chinese journal Chuang calculated that in Dongguan, which is one of like China's big industrial cities, if companies actually paid out the insurance benefits they were legally required to pay out, it would cut corporate profit by 50% and bankrupt like most of the companies working here. So the entire economy is based on this. And Zhang's family drives like 350 miles to the city where he died and starts like harassing government officials and bosses for like literally weeks. They are trying to get people to like, hey, will you pay out the insurance money you're legally required to pay us? And they refuse. The local officials like won't even give them like surveillance footage of like what like of him on the job dying. And after like several weeks of this, like 4 or 5 weeks, they're finally able to get a sixth of the money they're supposed to get if someone dies under sort of like this. They're able to get a sixth of the money that you're supposed to get under Chinese law if one of your family members dies in the workplace. And I'm focusing on this story because it's one of the few stories that we have directly about sort of the sheer magnitude of the suffering this heat wave is causing. And part of what's going on here is that we don't know what the death toll of the heat wave is. There's nothing about it, right? You'll see a couple of reports talk about like 2 or 3 heat-related deaths, but it is literally impossible that there are that few deaths. There was a study in the journal Lancet that was looking at heat-related deaths in China over the last 30 years, and it showed that like heat-related deaths have increased by a factor of 4 since 1990. And so there was another heat wave in China that was like pretty bad in 2019, and they calculated that 26,800 people had died from heat-related deaths.
Jesus, yeah.
And and again that heat wave, the 2019 heat wave was pretty bad. This heat wave, like, it has just utterly destroyed every single record that heat wave set. Like it is in like its own universe of heat waves. So it has killed it, like probably by the end of this, it will have killed like tens of thousands of people.
Yep.
And yeah, which is really bleak. And I mean, I think like part of the reason also I wanted to talk about like this specific story is that like, so the weather itself like is trying to like is enough to kill you, right? But like, okay, so. Like this kind of heat is survivable if, like, if you're in a situation where you can be inside and where you can be hydrated and stuff like that. But, hey, capitalism exists. That means you have to keep working during this shit, and that's just going to keep killing people. I wanted to sort of also look at sort of some of the historical heat waves to also to get a sense of how many people like probably died in this one. I think like. Maybe the most famous heat wave, like in my lifetime, well, until this one, I guess, was a heat wave in Europe in 2003. And that one killed something like 70,000 people. And there's a lot of very interesting stuff that we learned from this heat wave about what heat waves do sort of in general. The United Nations like environmental program like released a report about this. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff in it. I mean, okay, so the obvious one is that this has a massive effect on agriculture, which, okay, yeah, like, you can ask a 4-year-old and they will tell you that this is bad. And this is happening. This is affecting China right now, too, because this drought is hitting like right in the middle of a lot of China's breadbasket. So, yeah, there's all these sort of like downstream effects that we'll see later. One of the other fun parts about this is from the 2003 heat wave. I'm just going to read this quote. Massive alpine glaciers decreased by 10% in 2003. And yeah, okay, so what you're seeing here, right, is this sort of cyclical thing where each heat wave, does things like melt glaciers, right? And that makes the next heat wave worse because when you lose glacier mass, you're losing surface area that reflects light, which increases the level of warming. And this is sort of this is one of the sort of feedback loops that we're dealing with. Another thing that we've been seeing a lot in the U.S. 2020 had this like pretty badly. I mean, I guess like anyone who lives in the Pacific Northwest like understands this. There are just fires constantly because it turns out that when it's really hot, things just light on fire. In the 2003 one, there were 25,000 fires, and they burned something like 650,000 hectares of forest. And even the places it didn't burn, it causes sort of like severe ecological damage to these forests because, like the heat leaves trees, for example, like a lot weaker than they're supposed to be. And this leaves them vulnerable to things like plagues, into waves of insects, and this everything that's happening here with these heat waves, like weakens the environments that are supposed to be sort of like mitigating the effects of climate change. We also like on the sort of like human front, we talked about how heat waves can knock out hydroelectric power. It turns out they can also knock out nuclear power plants because nuclear power plants rely on like dumping their cooling water back into rivers. Now there's legal limits on how hot like the water that you can dump into these rivers is supposed to be, because it turns out if you dump a bunch of boiling water into a river, it's going to kill everything in it. But as the sort of cooling process like gets more difficult because the water levels are lower, you have to take power plants offline because otherwise you're going to just kill everything in the river when you're venting your sort of exhaust heat. And in 2003, it gets bad enough that like a bunch of companies get exemptions, right? They're like, okay, it's an emergency, we can turn this on, we can vent all this hot water back in the rivers. But you can only do this so many times before you irrevocably fuck up the ecosystem of the river. And again, this is the problem, right? Like you're getting into these feedback loops. You're destroying it. You're destroying the ecosystem. You're destroying the river ecosystems. This also again has problems with, like, it reduces the river's ability to serve as a carbon sink. And but it's like, but what choice do you have, right? Because your energy consumption through heat waves massively increases because you need to cool yourself down. You need air conditioning. You need things like fans, or people are going to die. And so, like every single one of these, like, heat waves just sort of spirals. Yeah, I guess the last thing I wanted to talk about is something that we haven't. We talked about this in like the very, very early episodes of the show, but like haven't talked about much since, which is wet bulb temperature.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so for people who don't remember what this is,
I mean, we were talking a little bit about it earlier, and that when you can't cool down at night, like that's one of the big things about a wet bulb temperature. But yeah, it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, so like I guess the basics of it is that, okay, so your body like cools itself down by sweating. And when the water evaporates off your skin, it cools you off. And this is one of the big ways that your body sort of keeps your internal temperature under control. The problem basically is, what if your sweat can't evaporate? And that brings us to what wet bulb temperature is. Here's NASA. Quote, wet bulb temperature is the lowest temperature to which an object can cool down when moisture evaporates from it. So what it's measuring for us is how cool our bodies can actually get from sweating. The problem is that at a wet bulb temperature of about 97 degrees Fahrenheit, your sweat stops evaporating and you can't cool yourself, and this kills you really, really fast. Here's NASA again talking to Colin Raymonds, I think he does climate stuff at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Once wet bulb temperature exceeds 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit, no amount of sweating or other adaptive behavior is enough to lower your body to a safe operating temperature, said Raymond. Most of the time, it's not a problem because the wet bulb temperature is usually 5 to 10 degrees Celsius below body temperature, even in hot, humid places. But, it's important to note here, by the way, that like the wet bulb temperature is like not the same thing as regular temperature. It's measuring something like that's different from how hot it is. And it's worth noting that like the current heat waves, like they're really bad, but it hasn't really been hitting, the wet bulb temperature hasn't really been hitting the places where they just are absolutely lethal and start killing hundreds of thousands of people. But that is going to happen, right? Even in sort of like even in the climate models where we keep emissions to like 2 degrees, right? Which at this point is looking like some of the optimistic models. Like this stuff is going to happen in the next 30 to 50 years. And unless something drastically changes, like we're going to watch this happen. We're going to watch countries hit these temperatures. We're going to watch enormous numbers of people fall over dead. And yeah, this is this is where climate change is heading, and it sucks. And the heat waves that are hitting China, the heat waves that are hitting India, the heat waves that we've seen here are like this is as good as it's going to get. It's just going to keep getting worse. I guess I should back up 1 second and talk a bit about the Chinese heat wave, which is that like the Chinese heat wave isn't just a climate change thing. There's other stuff going on here. There's like a very specific like confluence of like weather phenomena and like the La Nina and stuff like that like had to coincide to make a heat wave this bad. But the problem is like that stuff is all going to happen again. And so we're gonna get like, yeah, we're gonna keep getting heat waves like this, and yeah, unless we do something differently.
Yeah, I mean we won't. I mean we'll twiddle around the edges. The Biden administration snuck some language into the inflation bill that might allow the federal government to regulate CO2 still after the Supreme Court said they couldn't, but maybe not. Could you, Chris, why don't we send a message to the people in Shanghai and let them know that? That'll help.
Yeah.
they'll feel better.
Policymakers who listen to the podcast.
Yeah, all the policymakers who listen to the podcast. I don't know. Like this is it's one of those, if all of the policymakers who listen to our show were to take all of our advice immediately, and we were to transition every city away from being vehicle centered and like effectively cut our emissions by 70-80% or more, we would still be locked in to escalating heat waves like this all over the world for the rest of our natural lives because of the way the carbon cycle works. Not that wouldn't help in the long run, but it would certainly not. Like, that's one of the things that's so scary about this, is we're all girding ourselves for the inevitability that this will just become more common and more devastating.
So true. And for everyone that has a hard time breathing, there's always the hope that via geoengineering, we can just pump more pollution into the air to reflect more sunlight, which will increase a whole bunch of other diseases.
You know, I watched the first 7 seconds of the movie Snowpiercer, and that does seem like an idea that would work.
You know, it's funny. When I was in school, I read one of the first papers that was talking about this. And like the guy in the paper is like, the opening of the paper is him literally going, "This is a bad idea. We should only do this if there's literally no other choice." And then also, like, this is a thing we do for like 10 years to buy us more time to deal with regular climate change. And then as the years have gone on and as nothing has happened, you just got to watch like.
Well, there's Barack Obama's favorite book, Ministry for the Future, which is a legitimately very good book. It's just funny that he likes it because it absolutely embraces terrorism in defense of technology.
Like, killing politicians.
It embraces sneaking into the house of oil and gas executives and murdering them in the night.
Like half of
as
the
well
characters,
as a wonky carbon crypto fucking investment portfolio. But like, there's a lot of different ideas in that book.
like a lot of the characters in that book would have killed Obama. Like it's a very
funny.
like.
But one of the things that book deals with, so the inciting incident of that book is a horrible wet bulb moment in India that kills, I think it's millions of people. Just like a nightmare disaster. And one of the things the Indian government does as a result, against the express wishes of the global community, is start like essentially like an atmospheric seeding program in order to mitigate how bad the heat waves are. And like, there's a bunch of consequences to that. And I kind of think one of the things that's most realistic about that book is, as we have more shit like this happen, you will have nations on their own carry out climate mitigation efforts that could have serious effects on other countries, because any of this stuff you do, like if you seed clouds in the southwest or whatever in order to increase rain to raise the level at Lake Mead, that will, like, you can't fuck with the water cycle like that and not have impacts other places. And this is a thing that certainly global law, like the international legal system, is not ready to deal with. And it's certainly something that our media ecosystem is not ready to deal with. And it will happen. This is an inevitability, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, one of the things that we do want to talk more about is the reaction to this type of thing is going to be, by capitalist countries, and like the climate Leviathan model is going to be to basically privatize the atmosphere and privatize the sky, and different ways
Skyvatize.
Sure. But in terms
I
of all
saw pure hate in your face there, Garrison.
But between all of like the corporate like space projects and then stuff with geoengineering, it's just going to be renting out sections of the atmosphere so that people can pump things into for whatever kind of carbon neutral thing they want to do. Or
pumping shit into the atmosphere is what got us into this problem, and it's what's going to get us out.
So true.
Make money somehow. It's kind of funny that in the US, which I don't know if you saw this, but like this month, which we're recording this in August, there was a discussion about how the water was going to be used in the Colorado River by the various states that are.
Like, I did read that.
Yeah,
that was a very depressing report.
It's fucked up. Yeah.
It ended with like basically each of them chest thumping at each other and being like, "No, fuck you! I'll take as much water as I want. I'm upstream of you." I think Utah were the ones particularly like, belligerent in that case. But yeah, it is the opposite of what we need to do. But here we are doing it. I was in Utah this month. Looking at new golf courses being built by Fisher Towers out in the desert there, and it's great.
There's a fun. Okay, so Andreas Malm's last book before he kind of went off the like weird eco-Leninist rails was called Fossil Capital, and he has a really interesting argument that like one of the reasons that we got into this mess in the first place, and one of the reasons like companies started adopting coal was that even though coal was less efficient as like a source of electricity than having like water mills, having a succession of water mills going down the same river requires a bunch of different corporations to like coordinate with each other, and they don't want to do that. And because sort of like the laws around who controls rivers is really sort of unclear, like they were just like, no, screw this, we're just gonna use coal even though it's worse. And the fun part about this is now we get to get this again with like river law, where it's like, oh, hey, it turns out that capitalists and capitalist states are just utterly incapable of like sharing resources with each other. And they're just going to try to section off increasingly large parts of it, which is going to go increasingly badly.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of the things the failure to be able to imagine anything that exists outside of a profit and loss kind of mentality is one of the major problems that we have like all over with this. Like there's right now, one of the big stories coming out of the UK is that as a result of the war in Ukraine and gas prices, the cost of heating has risen fucking massively. This is a problem for all of Europe. And a lot of families in the UK are looking at the numbers I've seen are anywhere from like 4,000 to even 7,000 pounds to heat their houses during the winter, which is like 10 to 15,000 real dollars. It's a lot of money. And it's substantially in excess of what they have been paying in the past. And it's like, that is enough. I mean, imagine yourself, how many people, I'm going to guess it's a small fraction of people listening who could afford an extra $10,000 to $12,000 in bills this winter and not have it completely fuck their lives up. So obviously people cannot pay for their heating this winter. And like, if you can't pay a bill, you're not going to pay a bill, right? That's one of the laws of the iron laws of finance. Bills that can't be paid won't be paid. So the state is coming in, but the state is not, again, these companies, basically all of these companies would be essentially insolvent, like if things were allowed to proceed naturally. So the government's going to have to do something. But the thing the government isn't going to do is like actually nationalize any of these heating companies. It's just going to like pump more tax. Anyway, it's the same thing. It's a failure to kind of imagine anything outside of this. Well, maybe if capitalism has broken down around this issue, this isn't an issue that should continue to be in the hands of corporations.
Yeah, well, but the fun part about this too is that like, okay, it's like, we'll nationalize this and that will save us. And then you look at like, what do most of the world's nationally owned corporations look like? And it's like, well, okay, so the government owns like 51% of the stock, but then it functions exactly like a normal company.
Well, right.
And
I'm not
like,
saying like the solution is not. Sorry, James, you're the actual Briton in this room.
Yes, it's just kind of funny because in Britain, people living on state pensions or certain other like state programs, state disability and stuff, get a winter fuel allowance normally, and the winter fuel allowance is scheduled to go up like less than a tenth of that amount that you just said would be the increase in the cost of heating, right? And it's still sort of, it's just so funny to see, like, in theory, Britain has several political parties, all of them, especially with Labour under Keir Starmer, are clustered under a neoliberal consensus, and Keir, that like rather than considering doing anything, they are bickering over like how much of a pittance they want to throw to poor people.
Yes.
Yeah, it's also very funny that Britain did build a desalination plant in the Thames estuary, and forgot to account for the fact that due to it being an estuary, the river coming in and out, the levels of salt in the water would change, and that would make the desalination.
Oh my God.
So, and it's fucking, I think it's biodiesel fueled. It's just
awesome.
It's magnificent. Yeah, we've got great leaders over there and we don't need to change.
Yeah, no, you seem to, whenever I think of countries that have their shit together, I think the UK.
Yeah, you've got to remember that Nazis used bicycles when you're considering your options for transport and climate change in the future. Deranged British tweets of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, hey, okay, look. The one very dim silver lining is that maybe this will cause the entire British political system to collapse. Like,
yeah, but
you
that
never
happens
know.
like twice a year, right?
Well, no, but I mean, like,
what is
this
collapse here?
Well, like, okay, here's the thing, right? If you have enough people who the government is trying to pay their bills, they start throwing Molotovs at stuff. Like, this is this is actually a pretty reliable, like, one of the very reliable things that gets people to go fight police is, like, you've suddenly increased the price of gas that they either need to drive or need to, like, heat their houses. So maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. But then British people will also be barking for us to send the troops against the people who are protesting for the right to live with dignity. It's one thing we love to do.
Yeah, it's a fun country.
Oh yeah,
it's a fun tree.
At all.
Oh man.
All right. Well, are we good? Have we solved this one for all the policymakers who listen to our show?
Yeah. Throw a brick at your sheriff.
Yeah. Hit me up, fucking Lindsey Graham. Huge fan of the pod, Lindsey Graham.
Yeah. Get a Molotov if you're old.
Yeah. Lindsey Graham's actually just voted to subsidize Molotov cocktail production. So thank you, Lindsey, our based fan of the policymakers who listen to our show.
He must have been looking at the research.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's the only way. It's the only real way to stop climate change.
The only legitimate use of fossil fuels is in Molotov cocktails.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we'll be back Monday with more episodes every week from now until the heat death of the universe.
It Could Happen Here is a production of Cool Zone Media. For more podcasts from Cool Zone Media, visit our website, coolzonemedia.com, or check us out on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find sources for It Could Happen Here updated monthly at coolzonemedia.com/sources. Thanks for listening.
Hey everyone, it's Emily Simpson and Shane Simpson from the Legally Brunette podcast.
Each week, we're bringing you true crime through a legal lens.
Whether you want all the facts on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, or you still need to wrap your head around the Diddy verdict, we're breaking it all down step by step.
And we're not just lawyers, we're also husband and wife. It makes for some pretty entertaining episodes.
Listen to Legally Brunette on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know Roald Dahl. He thought up Willy Wonka and the BFG. But did you know he was a spy? In the new podcast, The Secret World of Roald Dahl, I'll tell you that story and much, much more.
What?
You probably won't believe it either.
Was this before he wrote his stories? It must have been.
Okay, I don't think that's true.
I'm telling you, the guy was a spy.
Listen to The Secret World of Roald Dahl on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The more you listen to your kids, the closer you'll be. So we asked kids, what do you want your parents to hear?
I feel sometimes that I'm not listened to. I would just want you to listen to me more often and evaluate situations with me and lead me towards success.
Listening is a form of love. Find resources to help you support your kids and their emotional well-being at sounditouttogether.org. That's sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal.
Hi, I'm Danielle Robay, host of Bookmarked, the podcast by Reese's Book Club. And this week on Bookmarked, we're basically hosting the ultimate girls' night. Reese Witherspoon, Jennifer Garner, Judy Greer, Rita Wilson, and Gary Rice, and author Laura Dave. These are the women behind season 2 of the Apple TV series, The Last Thing He Told Me. We're talking about turning a book into a hit show and what it really takes to bring a story to life.
The most important metric for me is, do I want to share this book with somebody? That's what creates community, and that's the main thesis of our book club and why we started it, was just to connect people together.
Listen to the Bookmarked by Reese's Book Club podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.